Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 235, the first week of 2021 proper. And we are here today. I am Peter. I am joined, as always, by Matt.
2021's off to a hell of a thing.
Yes. 2021 started with Connor coming back, which I think is just an omen for things to come, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Connor's here.
Sorry.
Connor, who caught up in the entirety of December's comics in the past 4 or 5 days. So I just have to ask for a 1-sentence opinion on Endless Winter. If you read that, even.
I did. Would have liked more of the flashback stuff. Very on the nose with being heavily influenced by lockdowns and such from the past year. But I mean, fun enough.
Fun enough. There you go. I can't ask for more than that, I suppose. I have something else somewhere. This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together every week. We talk about DC Comics, and we, review the books. We talk about news, all that sort of stuff. Coming up on this week's show, it's a very big week because it is the start of Future State, which is a 2-month kind of umbrella. I won't even say it's an event. It's more of an umbrella of just different things, as well as the end of Metal. So coming up today's show, we have Dark Knight's Death Metal issue 7. We have Generations Shattered issue 1, which is kind of loosely tied to Metal, but more about going forward because there's going to be more of it as the end of the issue revealed. So we'll get to that.
Listed, haven't we?
Yeah,
we may have done.
We'll get to that when we get to
that. But then we have Future State the next Batman issue 1, Future State Superman and Metropolis issue 1, Future State Wonder Woman issue 1, Future State The Flash issue 1, and Future State Swamp Thing issue 1 we're going to be talking about. There was also Future State Harley Quinn issue 1, which I thought Connor might have at least read, but no one did.
The reason I didn't is because the writer is the person who's doing the ongoing Harley book that's starting in March. But that ongoing Harley book is the one with Riley Rossmo on art, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not touching that. So I didn't see the point in getting invested in really liking these 2 issues of going, oh, this is going to be such a great Harley run, and then having to hate it. So I just don't want to get attached.
Yes, but there is some Riley Rossmo in your near future. Just
yes, I'm yes, I know.
Yes. For Connor's Patreon books, by the way, because obviously he missed a full month. He's got last month's Patreon books and this month's to do. He's going to start working through those next week.
Yes, I would have started this week, but I had all of December's comics to read.
Poor planning on his part, I think, but that's fine. That's fine. We're here now. Everyone's here. We are going to actually, just after we're done recording this, schedule when we're going to do the annual episode for 2020 to do our top 5s and best, discuss best writer and best arts and all that usual jazz. So more on that soon, but I imagine it'll be sometime this month. So that is the show. That's what's coming up. We got a heavy load. Now, I will say this. I think there's at least a couple here that I'm almost sure that we're not going to be doing issue 2s of next month. So February is definitely going to be later compared to January. Which ones you'll find out soon. We've got some big books to get to before we get to the Future State stuff, though.
And just a big week in general, because this is the first time all 3 of us have been on a show in 3 months or something like that.
Yeah, 3.5 months, something like that. So it's a return to glorious form. Bet you're all
Kicking
happy.
Off the year properly, I guess.
Yeah. Great.
Joelle's really funny.
I'm just trying not to meander because I know how I can get with me and Connor. So I'm trying to stay on target. So
all I'll say is the last week that was just me and Pete. I think we're going, oh, Matt might be back next week, and Pete goes, oh well, can Connor take a couple of weeks off? And oh, well, careful what you wish for. Someone can go back and find that clip if they want. It's in the last episode.
Be careful what you wish for. I wished for something. I got my wish. I was happy about it. It was delightful.
Did you retract your wish?
I did not renounce my wish. No.
That's what I remember.
Which, by the way, if anyone did listen to myself and Matt along with Tim's review of Wonder Woman 84, we were all middling to very negative on it, and I wasn't even the most negative. Tim hated that movie. Connor is by far the most positive out of anyone at MailFuzz TV about Wonder Woman 84, or as I like to call it, Wishmaster 84.
I am, but I want it clear. I don't love the movie. I think it's fun enough. I had a decent enough time. I definitely have some problems, but I mean, I had fun.
All right. All right. I'm just next time he brings up a cross disappearing on a panel, I'm going to bring up some of the plot holes in Wonder Woman 84, and we'll compare and contrast. Anyway, so
that's fine.
Coming up,
my dear brother's review of it, real quick though. I talked to him this week. Was at least I got to watch Gal Gadot for 2 hours, and I was like, that's the way to look at it, bud. He didn't want to focus on the negative. He just got to enjoy looking at Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and so
who doesn't enjoy that?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Well,
some people do, yes.
Yeah, there's certain versions, like a certain thing that came out. Was that this week? Time means nothing anymore. Of Wonder Woman holding heads.
Oh yes, yes.
That was this week. Yeah.
I don't want to look at that version of Wonder Woman.
No.
For 2 hours at all.
Would you believe it? Zack Snyder was going to turn one of DC's characters, who are the most virtuous and the one about truth and justice,
compassionate,
and turn her into a decapitating maniac. Oh, what a surprise! Anyway, so before we get to the books, there is one kind of bit of news, and it's not news, but it's worth mentioning. Scott Snyder talking this week about his future at DC. I mean, obviously we knew he was taking a bit of a backseat, as he said again, following Metal, but he did say that he has 2 big projects at DC that he's doing in 2021, but he's going to be sort of off the radar for a few months at least. So I think if you were speculating that maybe he is going to do a JSA book or something like that later in the year, that still seems to be very feasible given his comments here. So he's still doing stuff at DC. He's just he's maybe just not driving the big events anymore. But he's back for books later this year.
And I think that's okay, because I feel like Johns did the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for a while they were in the driver's seat, and then it just, I don't know if it takes its toll, but it's all right to get some fresh blood in there. And that's like overall seeing a lot of these new names on Future State stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like at the start of Rebirth where we're finding out about these new writers and everything kind of feels fresh. So if this is how they do things going forward, you know, I wonder who's going to be in that driver's seat now. You know?
Yeah, if you think about some of those names, like, I mean, he mentions in this interview, he talks about how he's going to let Williamson and Tynan sort of take the reins for now. And those were, I mean, we both heard of both of those writers at the start of Rebirth, but, you know, they were still relatively new, relatively unproven, and now they're like, oh, hey, these are the ones who are getting the keys to the kingdom a little bit more. They're doing some of these more event tie-ins. There seem to be, you know, I think
Tynan feel like the logical successors to from Snyder into Tynan and Williamson for sure, and then who knows after that.
Well, and we know that like Snyder kind of handpicked Tynan to do Bat stuff, and then we know John's handpicked Williamson for Flash stuff. So like they both get the predecessors like seal. So that's really cool that it plays into this now. Yeah.
And he even name drops Ram V, Joelle Jones, and Tom Taylor's writing books that are well worth looking for soon. So he has some taste. I'll give him that.
Did you guys talk about Lemire announcing that he's doing a couple new Black Label books in his newsletter? We
did not, but I did actually. You reminded me that I just saw it on Twitter last night that he's got a secret Black Label project with Doug Mankey in the works.
Yeah, because I don't know if you guys subscribe to his newsletter, but he mentioned he's got that one coming and another one that he can't say anything about. Both are coming this year, both Black Label.
Well, I mean, me and Matt are both nerds, but we're not quite as lame as you, so we don't have to subscribe to the newsletters. But
the newsletters are so good.
I do get the Tynan one, but I haven't had a time to look.
That 3-part Tynan newsletter from the end of the year. The first part in particular about just the industry is just top quality comics writing.
But I agree with Pete that I'm not that big of enough of a nerd. Like I do subscribe, but I see them in there. I'm like, oh, I'll get to that, and then I forget about them.
Missing out.
I know.
I don't know. I'm just thinking of that Maxwell Lord meme from Wonder Woman 84 with, like, you know, life is good, but it could be better. I'm just like, Connor's lame, but he could be lamer.
How are you sick of that meme? It's so good.
All right, so that was the one bit of news that I thought was worth mentioning. Was just obviously it makes sense. There's not a lot of news right now because we're straight after Christmas still. So there you go. That is that. So let's just straight to books. You know, so I'll let small talk a bit usually, but we got a lot of big books to talk about. Some of them with a big page count. So let's just get firing straight into things. And we're starting off, of course, but there's no other way to start this week. But Dark Knights, Death Metal, issue 7. Scott Snyder with Greg Capullo, of course, but also Bryan, Hitch, and Yanick Paquette also doing a little bit of art as well. which makes sense in the context of the book because we sort of shift into a new status quo at the end, and it kind of goes there. Is one of them wrong? Connor's making a face.
I'm just looking at the credits page and trying to see where they're credited.
They were both a Comixology because there's definitely
no, they're on the credits page too because I looked at it because I always like looking at the nicknames.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to argue that Comixology made a mistake, I'll believe you because they do it all the time. But there is unquestionably at least one different artist towards the end of that book.
No, I remembered seeing them and I was just like, where are they on the credits page? They've formatted it weirdly. They're after the inks and colours for some reason.
Yeah. If you told me that last 10 pages was still Capullo the whole time, I'd be like, man, he's really a chameleon. He can shift between styles.
Yeah.
So that's the big climax. Half of it is pretty much the big Wonder Woman versus the Darkest Night. That's what we're calling them. I was trying to remember what his new name is. So they're fighting above. We get snippets of the battlefield down below. So some big moments in there. I will just sort of focus on that first. Well, because obviously there's a lot of big universe stuff to talk about with the last chunk of the book. Let's just focus on the battle first. It was hard not to pop. If I'm picking a favorite kind of moment in the battlefield, it was well set up because it's set within the universe of the DC world, but it's hard not to pop when you get the most sort of Batman plan for this, when he just raises all of the Bat family back from the dead to continue fighting, including Alfred.
Cool.
Might we add?
Well, there's that, and it's like, you really think I would wear it on that hand? I did. Normally, that's something I would not have liked, but the fact that it is this big, huge, end of times kind of thing. Also, just the idea of the Bat family actually succumbing in battle is something that made me emotional.
Yeah.
And I didn't like, overall for the storytelling, it's great because you get a great moment, but just the idea, but it makes sense because they all are the regular street level heroes, right? They're probably not going to fare well in something like this where it's just waves after waves of evil superheroes coming after them.
Yeah, no, I got a kick out of it. It felt kind of like an FEM moment, and especially since okay, whatever's about to happen is going to reset the world anyway, so obviously they can all die and we can do whatever. This is a neat way of using a piece of DC mythology, which is the Black Lantern ring, which has been well established at this point, to have a cool moment.
Even just within this own event.
Yeah. So you have that. You also have some Flash stuff. Now, admittedly, we'll be talking a lot about Flash stuff later with the Flash not one shot, Future State issue 1. But there was a bit of meta commentary here, I thought, early on, when there's an evil blue version of Wally from some other multiverse, or some other multiverse. You know what I mean? And I think it's Barry who says to him, "You're not Wally. You're just a bad idea."
Yeah, I love that. Because it is him sitting on the chair, and we all know how I feel about the writer of that series, right? That did all that, and it felt like Snyder going this is something that I had to work back into this, and it was not so good. Yeah. So and more on Wally being bad ideas later in the show.
Oh yes.
So I hate that this has become a trope since at least Rebirth, just the Wally.
Remember the days when we were so excited that Wally was back? Yeah,
and now misused Wally is a thing, and I don't like it. But I do like
Heroes in Crisis was the first major example of it, right? Because before that he was underutilized, but he wasn't bad.
Right.
This is a conversation for later. This is more to do with
no. I know, but
here
I do like that. But no, I like that Snyder is addressing it. He's not acting like it's not a thing. So, it's there in these pages. Because we also got that in the last issue where they have the Wally wearing the Heroes in Crisis mask.
There's an evil Wally running around. Yeah. So, and it makes
sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. The idea was just a universe where Wally liked that he did what he did, and he's a psychopathic, Phantom of the Opera looking dude now, running around. It's the sort of thing where that's actually a good spin on it for the purpose of what the story's doing, but I just hate that original story so much that I just go away. Don't want it. And then of course there's some Superman stuff, Lex showing up in his giant mech suit to help Superman fight the Last Son, and him being before this universe ends, at least I get to kill one goddamn Superman kind of moment.
Pretty great.
Thanks. But the big stuff though, is that the Darkest Knight essentially tries to offer Diana, after they fight through time a little bit, they fight past some dinosaurs.
I love the visuals of her being, thrown through time. Like, it's through the moments, the circles. It's gorgeous stuff.
She also makes the Darkest Knight eat a planet at one point. That's how big and epic this fight is getting.
Is she also making Matt's camera go a bit funny?
No.
Oh. Is that on my end? No one else is doing it, just Matt. That's weird. Okay, never mind.
Sure, why not?
Pete's completely fine. Matt's is going all over the place.
Well, just bear with us.
Yours is off color on mine too, but on the other camera it's fine.
Weird.
So it's fine on my feed, but the direct camera from Connor's bad. Yeah, it looked like shit for me before you joined the call, but now it's looking okay. But I'll notify that it's Connor. But
yeah,
I mean,
it's still at the end of the day. Anyway, Wonder Woman fighting through time.
Yes.
But they see the hand of the universe at the birth of the multiverse, which is another trope that I love from DC. Right?
Yeah, and we have this idea that the race, the beings that Perpetua comes from, are coming to basically end existence because everything's gotten out of hand. And the Darkest Knight tries to make a deal with Wonder Woman, tries to say, look, if we join forces, I'll have enough power to kill these things, and then I will make a new multiverse, and I'll let you have your one little universe where all of you and your heroes and the people can live happily ever after, and I'll leave you alone. It'll be fine. And Diana refuses, of course, because he's an evil madman. A, you can't trust him, but B, it's not worth doing. And so where this goes was giving me serious The Abyss vibes. I don't know if anyone else knows that movie.
Still have yet to see it, just because it's so hard to find.
Yeah, I know.
Of it streaming that's good. So
that's the reason I've never seen it either, because I'm like, it's not a good looking version.
But basically, these beings, when they show up, they were going to kill the multiverse and everything, surrounding, but essentially say that Diana, because she had the choice to kill them and try and overthrow them a different way, but chose not to, actually kind of proved to them that maybe the people are worth saving, that maybe this existence is worth preserving in some way. And they appear to her in a form that she'll understand, and it's kind of her original, first appearance style look. And it's very Death of Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, walking off into the white, basically. And she's not dead, so they made that very clear. Wonder Woman is not dead. She's ascending to a higher plane of existence where she's going to help these beings monitor existence.
Right. Which I did love that use of that, because it plays at the tropes of DC, right?
Yeah.
And for as much as this is an anti-crisis, right, it very much becomes a crisis here at the end with
pretty much
with the way that it splits worlds, and like this where they talk about, hey, you guys are heroic enough, like especially Wonder Woman, to save everybody. Like you were gonna sacrifice this, to defeat the Darkest Knight once and for all. It was real cool.
This Wonder Woman moment, I believe, leads directly into her future state mini, where she's like at the end of the world watching everything.
Yeah, the one we've not read yet, specifically.
The new one. Yeah.
Immortal. Yeah, Wonder Woman Immortal, as I looked this morning. But no, and I like how it plays into with what we thought of what Generations was going to be when we got that Scott Snyder story of her showing up at, before World War II and saving FDR. And I just like that it plays, like, I don't know, I feel like we see more of the map that Snyder kind of had in mind.
Yeah, I mean, if
it
nothing
appears here as Diana in that form.
If nothing else, even if we didn't get the Generation one shots as planned, having that one story of like her first appearance in that timeline, it at least kind of works with this as the bookend of like, okay, this is why we did this. We wanted Snyder's version of that classic Wonder Woman to exist before we see her here. So it kind of works at least a little bit in that way, which is cool. But the thing, so what we learn, so there's a big party at the Hall of Justice. The artist has changed, of course. This is now the new existence, and we learn.
Yanick, Paquette,
and we learn. Wally's taken. Barry takes Wally, who's not evil. I really want to point that out. It's important later. So Barry takes Wally to this new. It's essentially a new Watchtower type thing, but it's sort of beyond. It's hidden, right? You have to go to a certain frequency in the multiverse to like access it,
which is like the background frequency of the multiverse, which I love, because I know this is the stuff in Snyder that I miss, because sometimes he gets really into the weeds with it, but when he nails it, it's like, he did research on what is the background frequency,
Right.
and it comes through here, and I appreciate that.
This station, that's the Black Lantern symbol, right? It's very similar.
It's very similar, but it's also similar to the Doom and Justice and all of that. But it also looks like the White Lantern.
Yeah, it's just a mix,
symbol.
which I think is kind of intentional, because it's a mix of good and evil that are kind of helping run this. Because that's what we find out, is that inside the station, Batman and Superman are there, Hawkgirl's there, Martian Manhunter, Mr. Terrific are there, but so is Vandal Savage, Talia al Ghul, and Lex Luthor. And this is a place.
Oh no, that's Brian Michael Bendis.
Shut up. Right, this is called the Totality. This station.
The second glance then.
This is called the Totality, this station, and it's about monitoring the new Omniverse, which has been created, which is basically, this is where we get some of the juiciest details, which is that every multiverse, every Earth ever, every existence ever in the DC universe is back and exists. Some people who were dead before the events of Metal are back. Not everyone yet, but a lot of them are. I'm sure that'll become clear as time goes on. But so that's obviously very kind of end as blackest night, going to brightest day, kind of all these people coming back, even without the big splash page of like here's who's actually back. And I assume that's because they want to have the flexibility of choosing who is back in the individual stories as they're going forward, and that's fine. But
and here I feel this is DC having their cake and eating it too when it comes to continuity stuff, which I know has been done before, but like honestly, who's read Convergence? I think I'm the only one here that actually read all of it.
Read all of it? Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah. So like, sure, they did this where they made that Crisis on Infinite Earths and everything that came before it did happen, and it didn't just reset clean, which was nice after Rebirth, New 52, because New 52 went ahead like none of that had ever happened, right? But here, the fact that it's happening in this big, huge book written by one of the preeminent writers at DC for the last 10 years, right? It makes it stand out, and it gives it a spotlight that, hey, we can do like these out of continuity kind of stories that still matter, right? It's not just the Black Label, it's off here by itself.
And that's multiverse stuff, but even the history that had previously been erased and brought back and then erased again or whatever, all of that seems to be in the character's memories in some form, right. Even if, it has to be mutated a little bit for it all to sort of click together in a weird way,
right.
But
and
it is there.
And to me, that's giving the writers and artists and all this a little bit of free reign to being like, hey, look, you got to color in the lines a little bit, but use what you want, which I think what some people have issues with continuity is, no, it has to follow this. It's kind of, I call it the Wolverine rule, where over in Marvel, Wolverine was like on every team at one time. And I was like, well, theoretically, how does this all piece together? And I get how that can be a problem, but here it's solving the issue of continuity. It was like, hey, if you have a story you want to tell with Wonder Woman, but it took place during this era, go ahead and tell it. Like, it'll all fit now. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty enough room for storytelling without having to get into the weeds of that Wolverine rule, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's really interesting that, by that logic, you could have Batman on every team, because let's be honest, it would be Batman.
Right.
And you could theoretically say this story and this story are actually on slightly different multiverses that are nearly identical, except Batman's on this team instead of that one.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll go quite down that path. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they actually do stories set in these different parts of DC history, which I think I was talking about a little bit last week. But
at least we were with the generation stuff.
But at least for the present stuff, I think what's relevant here is that the entire histories are accessible in their memories. They can bring back characters and relationships that they had in pre-crisis or post-crisis or whatever, and we have all those options. But the other big thing that we have to talk about here, the other big thing that's revealed, is that Earth Zero, Earth Prime, whatever we're calling it these days,
Earth Prime.
It's
Earth Prime.
Yeah. Okay. Is no longer the center of the DC universe. In fact, they're looking into it. They explain it here that it's a bit of a mystery, and there's actually 2 planets that are now the center of the Omniverse, and they're a bit unclear as what they are. They think one is an Earth, but they don't know exactly what type of Earth it is. But for now, they're referring to it as the Elseworld, which obviously DC tongue in cheek there, yeah.
Yeah.
I smiled at the name, I'll admit. But it does beg the question of, okay, so we have these twin worlds, but only one of them might be Earth-like, and even then, like, what is it like? What sort of Earth?
Real Apocalypse and New Genesis vibes from this.
I could see that. So I think what's interesting here is that, okay, this clearly feels like there's some sort of plan for something, and this is not just like being set up here because this is the status quo now, la da da. Like, someone has something planned for these two worlds at some point.
At some point, yeah. This is a story that's coming in the next decade or so.
Yeah. I would, if I was going to put a number on it, I'd say 4 or 5 years. But yeah, I mean,
realistically, yeah, that's probably more accurate. But things change. You never know exactly.
Exactly, but there's a plan.
So clearly, I read this wrong, and now, oh man.
Are you disappointed or happier?
I'm disappointed.
Okay, why? What did you think?
Because how I read this, how it ended, right? Is this Elseworld is what it turns to the next page. That's what it is, right? Because they call it Earth Alpha. There's Earth Prime. Those two terms can be synonymous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I took this, it also from the Morrison, because if you look into Morrison's multiversity map and all of this, there are certain Earths that counterbalance each other, right? And I took this as these two Earths now exist to make the multiverse or the omniverse more stable, right? Because having the one at the center is what led to the Darkest Knight being able to run his thing. So now if we have two, because the creators have deemed like this is, it's harder if there's two now. And it was going to play with DC history in that Earth Alpha is now the Earth of the Justice Society. Because when you turn the page, right, we go to that, and it's the 40s.
So that's Earth Zero.
Yeah, it specifically says Earth Zero. But
right.
I think this is less to do with, like, I don't think it's implying that's on this mysterious. I think that mysterious new Earth is purely mysterious right now. I don't think we've seen anything from that new Earth. Or at least if we have, it's going to be a surprise when we find out later. Oh, by the way, this was secretly on there the whole time or whatever.
Which just led me going to, okay, well, this is Snyder's Justice Society.
Well, I think
we were hypothesizing.
I think that's more the point of what we're seeing here is that I think it's interesting and is telling that he's going to do a JSA book, because Metal 7 ends on a little tease of his Justice Society. It's just 2 pages, but it goes to Sergeant Rock, who's been kind of this sort of narrator and kind of back and forth throughout the entire book, and it ends with the JSA showing up to help him in this part of the timeline. So I think that the ending here to me is saying, okay, this part of history is one of the things that are relevant. And the fact that he's ending on this big splash page of the JSA tells me, well, and it wouldn't surprise me if the artist here is also going to be the artist on that book. It wouldn't shock me.
It's Hitch.
Yeah, it's possible. I also thought maybe because it's Hitch and there's a strong Hawkman link here, given that it's his journal, and Hitch did the first major arc on the recent Hawkman book. So I thought maybe that was the link.
Just the reincarnation. Well, either way, whatever way it plays out, though, the fact that I could read that from that, even though Earth Zero was right there, because I just took that Earth Zero designation as that's, they're completely unaware of another Earth, right, in 1943 or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, but if whatever the Elseworld is, I'm like happy either way. But the fact that I feel like I completely misread this, I'm disappointed in myself.
I get why though, because it's kind of reminiscent of what we used to have with Earth 1 and Earth 2, with
Earth 2. Right.
With being here's all the pre-crisis, the JSA, all that stuff,
right.
And then the other one being the present day, stuff. It is very reminiscent of that idea, just a step removed by kind of not. I mean, if me and Peter are right, not being those concepts as instead.
Well, now it makes me ask the question then: how is this Earth Zero? Is this just an omniverse Earth Zero, like that the JSA occurs on?
Earth Zero within the current multiverse, because that's the idea with the omniverse, right? Is that these are all different multiverses,
right?
And assuming that this Earth Zero is inside the same multiverse as, I'm assuming this is still Earth Prime. I'm assuming that's how it fits together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and just with the
Or-
way
or-
that they said it's an alpha Earth too. That's what made me think like alpha meaning first. You know, just I don't know. There was just a lot there that he threw in that.
I would
Yeah.
also maybe argue that the Earth Zero designation is because we used to call Earth. I mean, in the context of this, we used to call Earth Prime Earth Zero because during the New
Right.
52, that was the main Earth was Earth Zero.
Right.
So
Yes.
I do wonder if there's maybe some sort of idea here that before the events of Metal, it was Earth Zero, but now it's Earth Prime or
Whatever.
wherever it changed.
Right.
But so it's actually this is still in the history of the same Earth in some way. I could be
Right.
wrong there, but it could be.
No, and that's. But you know what's cool is that it leaves all these doors open to be answered at some point. It doesn't like even if it doesn't come from Snyder, just the fact that another writer can pick it up.
Because
and-
I think
and go from it.
it's notable that there's no Wonder Woman in this splash page, so I'm wondering if this is the same Earth,
Right.
but it's before Wonder Woman appears.
Right.
Yeah, and you could be right. You know, we're saying Earth Prime because that's what it's been recently, but it is possible they've actually reverted it back, and we are supposed to call it Earth Zero again now, and
Yeah.
Earth Zero is our Earth, and we'll learn that later.
Yeah.
Right.
So, because to me, I mean, I think making this another Earth feels a bit weird, given that we've been talking for ages about how we're reinserting Wonder Woman in as showing up during World War II, during the GSA times. It makes sense. I mean, it would also work to just make that a separate Earth if you want to just have complete
Yeah.
freedom to do whatever. But at the same time, if we're going to be trying to fix continuity, if Snyder wants to play with it, then it
Yeah.
makes sense this was still the
think-
same Earth.
It helps that as DC readers, we're all pretty comfortable with the JSA being on their own separate Earth.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it was for a long time.
Yeah. As much as I like seeing them interact, like during the mid 2000s, like when Johns was writing them, and you know, like that's real cool. But now, as we start getting closer to like 100 years of since within the next couple decades, it's going to be kind of difficult to just have those characters exist without some shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they're on their own Earth, kind of by themselves, and with what you can do with multiversal type stuff, or even the Flashes crossing over.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to want to have them in present day, instead of just having them have longer lifespans, I feel like evenally the standard
The
thing is going to
point.
have to be that there's going to be like some sort of time jump for them where they all get transported like several decades just to.
Because that was always what I thought too over at Marvel with Magneto, right?
Yeah, because
Is, he's supposed to be a survivor of the Holocaust, so it's like the further away we get from that, the more difficult it is to try to explain away unless you start throwing in.
Yeah, he's like.
It's comics. You can do
problem
anything,
of the sliding timeline, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
What's the problem of using real world events at all in comic
I
books
mean-
is that you kind of tie it to time frames.
Right. How many wars has Frank Castle been his origin story?
But that's the thing. What works is what's weirdly cool about how that works is, and what's also shitty about the world is that there's always a war that he can have PTSD from.
Yeah.
Whether it's Vietnam or Iraq or whatever. Like over the last 50 years, just pick one. And
Pretty much.
And, you have the Punisher.
Yeah.
So
In a few years' time, it'll be Delaware. Yep.
don't Pete, don't mess with that. Don't.
The Great Delaware War of 2028.
Delaware. What's in Delaware? Queen's World for those.
Bloodbath,
Initiated.
man. That's what's in Delaware.
Anyways, just like I am so glad that Snyder stuck the landing, and especially as like a DC history nerd, just the fact that it again, the writers now have free reign to kind of do whatever, and I look forward to whoever's going to be bold enough to try to do Booster Gold in the Omniverse kind of stuff. I look forward to that kind of storytelling. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to use the Omniverse constantly from the get-go all that much. I think it's there so that in the odd occasion where they do want to do something weird, they could say, it's often this multiverse that's separate from everything.
Yeah, I think it's a long-term plan with things like Black Label books. Kind of okay. Well, if they fit, great. If not, it's just a different multiverse, and you can kind of slap together any combination of things you want.
Right.
Pretty much. It's freedom for later, rather than me think. I mean, obviously, I expect these two planets to be involved in a story at some point. These two mystery planets, but I don't necessarily think that the Omniverse right now is about. We've got some big story about the Omniverse planned or anything like that.
Yeah, it's funny. We mentioned this feeling a lot like the end of the Johns era, with this being the end of Snyder's, and this whole tease at the end here feels like a very John's tease, doesn't it? Where
Mhm.
he'll throw something out and we'll get to it maybe in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, the post credit, right?
Yeah.
That Johns would always do. I'm still waiting for the War of the Seven Kingdoms and Aquaman. I know it's never happening.
Yeah, give up on that dream, Matt.
I will be here for it when it does. You know, like
when
if it does.
When he says when, not if. When.
I know. Well, he also did with Shazam, and he eventually paid off Shazam, although not as wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. But he had teased stuff in Shazam.
He's just too busy with TV shows and shit now. He's off.
I gotta start Stargirl at some point.
It's good. You should watch it.
Good.
I know it's good. As this time with TV, it's very. I'm not motivated to do much, so sitting there watching stupid stuff on YouTube ends up what happens. So, also I've been cooking a lot.
That's so different from sitting there watching stupid stuff on the TV, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Well, last metal numbers, or death metal, I should say, number 7.
Oh, just real quick, just the art, right? I don't think we Capullo, just him being able to shift from like these big group things happening to just the solitude of Wonder Woman versus Darkest Night, and just the big they're giants, right? And they're going through. I thought that was handled really well.
Yeah, the sense of scale was good. Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why I didn't mention them too much is because it's been Capullo the whole book. It's also been Capullo for Metal 1. It was Capullo for Snyder's Batman,
Capullo's nothing if not consistent. I feel right. Like it's always what you're gonna get, whether it was on Batman and stuff like this. And then when it shifts to the Paquette art, it's just similar enough to Capullo that it's not jarring. So I felt like that because did they do that in the last metal too? That almost the epilogue was done by a different artist.
Yeah, it was setting up the Justice stuff. Right. I think that was a different artist at the end of that. Yeah.
Okay.
I realized that Paquette is a cleaner artist than Capullo. Really more bold, clean lines.
Do you know what it is? It's more of a Silver Age look. And I think that's kind of the point, is that the idea that DC Universe has been restored to its fullest, and I think for a lot of us we think Silver Age when we think of the baseline classic DC.
Right. This is the sort of this epilogue you could have swapped in like Doc Shaner or someone like that.
Yeah.
Would have fit just as well.
Yeah, and it also kind of feels like the Shaner Garrett's, dynamic on Strange Adventures with Capullo, where they're similar but they're different enough, right? So it fits.
Yeah, see now I'm watching it with Shaner because I like Shaner even more. But
Shaner's. Did you see his Christmas painting or drawing that he did this year?
Oh, with the Superman one.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually. No.
Yeah, go check that out on Twitter. It's real good. He does one every year. And
he usually does an end of year wrap up one as well. Right. But I think that's coming a little bit later. I think he had some family issues. I think he said.
Yeah.
So, how do you summarize 2020 in a drawing? I mean, is he comfortable just drawing a big turd? I mean, maybe.
I can't wait to see him try.
All right. So that's death metal.
Everything's on fire.
That's a turd on fire. You're right, Matt. The perfect combination. So that is death metal issue 7, end of the big event, and sort of sets up a lot of big stuff for the universe going forward. And a fair amount of it. We're not really dealing with I mean, obviously there's a couple of panels when they're looking at the Omniverse and the base. There's a couple of panels of Future State stuff, but I think Future State's less to do with the fallout of this and more of a nice something different for a couple of months before the actual world gets going. So
a palate cleanser, if you will.
Yeah, they did that whole thing of throwing out the name of the new thing. They mentioned, it's an infinite frontier, and it's like, yes, very good.
Well, to be fair, I actually think Infinite Frontier, given the context of what's set up here, actually does make sense as a title now, because it is literally an Infinite Frontier.
It's just one of those things that when they put it in the bold, so you to make sure you get it, I'm like, ugh, stop it.
It's the sort of thing where I wish we didn't know about that one shot yet. I wish I'd read that with bold and go, oh, Infinite Frontier, that sounds like something. And then we get news of the book. But because we already knew about the book, it's like, there you go, you're advertising your thing. Yeah. All right, Matt, what are you rating Death Metal 7?
I'm giving this a 9. I really enjoyed this. First thing I read this week, and it really kicked everything off, right?
Connor?
Yeah, I mean, also the 9, and also it kind of has to be the first thing you read this week.
It kind of had to be.
I could have started elsewhere. I could have started Generation Shattered.
But this leads into the other things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm also gonna go with the straight 9. I thought it was a very effective, interesting setup for everything in the DC universe. The fighting beforehand was fun. Yeah, it's a solid event. And I don't know, everyone loves it. I know there's entire pockets of the comic book internet community who really hated death metal, but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, death metal number 7. Generations Shattered issue 1. Dan Jurgens, Annie Schmidt, and Robert Venditti are the writers. I have not listed the artists because there's too many to name. We'll mention those as we see them on the credits page and whatnot. And this is not the only book this week I did that with either, by the way. There's a couple other books where there was just too many names to even consider putting them all in.
15 different artists, or 15 different pencilers.
There you go.
On this book.
There you go. So yeah, it's telling when the front cover says "and more" after like 6 names in the art. It doesn't give you them all. So, yes. So the artist Ivan Reis, Fernando Pesaro, Aaron Lopresti, sorry, Emanuele Lupacchino, Bernard Chang, Yanick Paquette, Kevin Nolan, Dan Jurgens, Cliff Jansen, Paul Pelletier, Sandra Hope, John Romita Jr. and Danny Miki, Doug Braithwaite, Rags Morales, Dan Jurgens and Cliff Jansen again, and then Mike Perkins to wrap things up. So that is your artist list.
I'm gonna start with a hot take that they gave JRJR too many pages.
Do you know what? Because I didn't read the entire list of names at the start, and I didn't know he was in it because he's buried like 2/3 through that list.
Yeah.
So I turned the page, and within like a panel or 2 panels, I was like, oh god damn it, I know exactly who this shit is. But it just kept going.
Yeah, luckily because it is shifted artists off, you didn't have to wait long before it moved again. But yeah, there's a concern. So this is an interesting. It is very much a part 1. It's not a full story. It is. So we were teased this story when Commandy showed up and essentially grabbed the Detective 27 version of Batman back from Batman 1027, or from Detective Comics 1027 rather. And this sort of takes us back to the start of Commandy's journey. So basically, what I was thinking of, so there's this white thing, this white sort of like bubble that's just eating everything up. And even though there's other examples of this in DC and there's examples in other media, Crisis even has kind of something like this. For some reason, I was thinking he kept calling it what did he keep calling it?
The goneness.
The goneness. It was reminding me of the Nothing from the Never-Ending Story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was making me think of.
Yeah.
Because he kept calling it that.
And parts of this book made me feel like the Never-Ending Story, like it was never going to end.
Yeah, I was going to say, this book didn't make me feel anything.
Just keep going. And like, I really like Dan Jurgens and I really like Venditti. I haven't read a lot from Annie Schmidt. I just felt like maybe 80 pages was too much for this, because this is a mixed bag. Like, there's like at least 4 different stories in here.
Honestly, I thought this was kind of terrible.
Because there's parts of it that I really do like, but it's just like it's kind of all over the place, and it's fun to go see these like different eras and see the different comic eras interacting with each other. Like Sinestro from the Silver Age interacting with classic Detective 27 Batman,
with Superboy from Legion and
Superboy from the Legion and all this stuff. And Booster, like, come on, like I love Booster, but like the longer this took me to read, I just was like, I wasn't having as much fun as I thought I was going to have.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I'm not terrible at Cotter. I think that's a bit on the harsh side.
I would say I agree with all those things that you're talking about. Like, the ideas, in theory, are good. I just don't think at any point this is enjoyable to read.
I thought it was a fairly easy read for about 2/3. I think once all the characters are together and like the villains show up and there's like fighting, because I thought because at the end of the issue when they're at the vanishing point and they're fighting this the linear men from the vanishing point who've all been turned evil by I'm forgetting who the villain is now at the end, but
it's the time guy.
Dominus,
thank you. Yeah. When that's happening and they're like fighting, it's just like they're crashing through different time periods, which is funny because it kind of happened in Death Metal 7 with Wonder Woman, but there it was very easy to follow and you sort of pop through each of the moments. At the end of this issue, it just felt like kind of like a mess where it was just I couldn't really follow a fight through it. So
yeah, and you know, there was a point, I think it's right after Booster tries to hit on Starfire when they're at the vanishing point, and there's a panel right after that, where you've got Superboy kind of reaching out to Starfire and kind of offering, like, hey, we'll do it all together. And the panel after Booster says, "Did he say Legion like my ring?" And I cannot find where anyone said Legion right before that. Like,
right.
Where is it? Am I missing something? I went back
did
like
the
3
same thing.
pages trying to find this reference that he's referring back to, and it's not there.
Yeah, it's because I mean I think it's easy enough to read for the most part. I mean it's a little bit repetitive because it is just like Commander going through different time periods because he's got the booster arm or sorry the Skeets arm I should say.
Yeah, from Future Booster who
yes
had to turn Skeets into an arm thing. It was very Liefeld, if you ask me. And I feel like that was the point because Liefeld does do the whole Cable type thing really well of the future hero that's been, they're all haggard and stuff. So I felt it was a Jurgens, Jurgens or whoever wrote that initial part.
Yeah.
Kind of poking fun at the genre, but
yeah. So there's a lot of like, obscure DC character cameos, especially early on here when it's going to all the various time travelers and, once you start bringing up Wave Rider and, Rip Hunter, you're like, okay, all right. So for people
the
who...
Linear Man and even Dominus, who's an old school, Legion.
Yeah,
figure,
that's one of those things where I recognize the name when it eventually revealed who it was. I'm like, oh, I recognize this name.
Dominus such a Jurgens creation, right?
I think I'm looking through the history, and there's not a lot of good wikis.
Yeah, I will say
on it.
This oddly feels less important than I thought it was going to. There are things I like about it. I kind of like there's the panel where Dominus, we don't know who it's him yet, but he's near the vanishing point or wherever in space, and he's ready to like build his new universe, his paradise as he calls it. And I kind of like that he's essentially drawn a red S with like a yellow sort of splash of light behind it and there's some blue at the sides. I kind of like the weird kind of almost nebula kind of becoming like the Superman sort of shapes and colors. And then that big splash page afterwards where it's like, here's like, what the DC universe going forward. Because I appreciated, you've got like, your big heavy hitters, but you've got also Sideways on there. We got some of the new Future State characters, but you also have, like, they didn't leave off Jessica Cruz because I'm always critical when they only have the 4 and they leave off Jessica.
Yeah.
I mean, Simon too, but Jessica's the one I care about. So, but yeah, it's him going around recruiting people in the various timelines as the white, nothingness is coming towards them and taking them. And I do appreciate that they kind of fail a couple of times. Like he was meant to get Brainy, but he got Superboy instead. But that kind of works out when he fails to get Superman. So I was like, okay, well, we have a super person, kind of the same guy. I mean, it is the same guy, but obviously less experienced. And
and he gets Steel, right?
Yeah, instead of Brainy. Yeah.
Right.
So I appreciate some of those troubles. I kind of like the trip through, these weird parts of DC history, Dr. Light from Post Crisis, yada yada yada. Once they're all together, though, I did feel it kind of break down a little bit. It wasn't as special or didn't feel as important as I was hoping it would be, because it kind of feels like you could probably just read Metal 7 and go straight to all the new issues, go straight to Infinite Frontier specifically, I guess, in March. And that feels like it's going to be the important thing of setting up the universe going forward. It feels like these Generations one-shots now that maybe these are a combination of like what the one-shots were going to be before, where they've sort of splashed them together and said, okay, let's just do it this way instead. I don't think it was a terrible read, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I think I think for me it was way too repetitive for 2/3 of it, and then when they all came together, like I say, it didn't really click. The fighting, all that was afterwards was kind of a mess, which is why I kind of say it's kind of terrible for me, because it doesn't really work on any real level outside of a couple of nice ideas.
I was just disappointed that it's going to be this romp across the DC timelines and stuff, and then I just feel like, especially after Metal 7, it just felt like a lot of the same.
It almost feels like the purpose of this is to expand on Metal 7. Like if Metal 7's like, hey, everything's fixed, everything works, everything happened. This kind of feels like, okay, well, the hyper time, all the timelines, everything's compressed. It's weird. How are we going to explain that? And this feels like it's supposed to explain that, but I'm not sure I need explain. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just go with it. From the end of Metal is probably enough.
Yeah. It definitely is a bit long. I think you could probably tell this exact story in about half as many pages quite comfortably. It'd probably feel nicely
easily.
Paced.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to point out that Ran is not in 2814 Space Sector.
I was actually going to ask about this because I was like, did I just discover that that's in the same sector as Earth? Because I was going to say that makes space feel freaking huge if Rand's in the same sector as Earth.
It made Ran feel a lot closer all of a sudden.
Well, it's not just that. Is that the Green Lanterns from Rand and Thanagar were major figures in the Green Lantern Corps Tomasi series, and they were not from 2814 because they were from their own sector. Because you had Isamot and you had Vassarin, and their whole thing is they had to be partners, even though one's from Thanagar, one's from Rand. And I was like, I don't know what sector they were from, but I know it's not 2814 because they're, but yeah, so it's just stuff like that. That's stuff that shouldn't matter, but it matters to me.
Just weird editorial oversights that there's no reason for that to slip through.
I mean, a couple of slips like that aren't really a big deal, but given the way this story feels, having read it, it does kind of add to the sentiment that this feels like it's not that important anymore. It feels like it wasn't, it's just kind of here. We had some material we had to sort of like do something with, and this is what it is now. It's one of those
things that is concerning in the sense of this is a book that's positioning itself as, oh, look at all these things that are really important in the DC universe that matter, and we're going to tie it all together and do this big hyper time thing. If you're going to do that and make us kind of get on board with it, you have to get the little things right. You have to get the basic facts right to establish it so that we'll trust you on the bigger stuff. Yeah,
the characters at the end, so after the fight, they all get scattered into different places, times, whatever. Detective 27 Batman ends up in a future where there's like sex bots and like a freezer. You're like, hey, put me together and I'll be your friend. And I'm like, what do you mean friend? What do you mean?
It was very Blade Runner to me. Like, I will say that the art that leads to that with like the shattering of stuff, and you see all the different, like, it looks like there's, Sergeant Rock is fighting dinosaurs in like a futuristic looking city, and then you have a Manhunter robot coming into contact with Jonah Hex. And it looks like the Fatal Five from Legion encountering the Justice Society. I'm like, this is all real cool stuff. Like,
for a second, I thought you were about to praise Ramita art because you mentioned the shattering.
No, I asked him before.
Before that, I think it's Ramita's last page is everything's cracking. No. Which is a nice effect. It's just
No, further along. When you get to this one, and just like there's just a lot of fun like encounters here that almost like I know a lot of people bring up tone poems when they're kind of making fun of George Lucas, right? But I feel like this is almost like a superhero kind of tone poem.
Is it like poetry? Does it rhyme?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I don't know about this, but Star Wars does for sure.
It does rhyme because they can't do anything bloody new, so they just keep rhyming the same thing. Anyway,
someone hasn't watched the Mando, so
I don't want to. I don't need more CG faces. Anyway, so the end of the book is that Dominus goes to his black and white world where he's a father with a loving wife. It looks like it's the 50s. And maybe this is, the world that he wants to try and build.
Maybe it's because I just read this.
The Twilight Zone.
Maybe it's because I just read it, but I got major Tom King Vision vibes.
Yeah. Sure. Well, that's very Twilight Zone as well. I mean, that's a fair comparison.
Well, no, I feel like Mike Perkins directly took, reference points from the opening of the Twilight Zone season 3.
I can see that.
The floating door and all that stuff, but yeah. So just I had to look up Dominus because it had been a while since I had encountered that character, and he was like a priest that had like through meditation had achieved oneness, and then so I don't know if this is supposed to be like a thing that he just wants like his physical self back, and that's why he's doing all of this. Which seems like, I don't know, man, there might be better ways to do it than like ripping time apart. I don't know.
Just comic books, just that good.
I know,
Roll with it. Roll with it. So it says to be continued in Generations Forged issue 1. Which is that March, February? I don't know when that was sausage.
I think it's February.
Yeah.
Did I ultimately enjoy this? Not that much. Am I gonna read it? Probably, because I can't help myself.
Yeah, I'm probably going to read it as well, just because I want to see how the end, like, how just from a multiverse point of view, how it wraps up. So I'm probably going to read the second one.
I'm not sure I care enough to read it. Like that's how bored I was reading it. Especially if it's 80 pages, I'm definitely not. If it's,
it's definitely 80 pages, but you're always the more negative one, so that's fine. We expect that.
I feel justified in my negativity this time. I don't feel like this is out of nowhere.
Hey, I've got negativity later, right? I'm being a bit more even keeled with this because I didn't hate reading this. It's just a bit overlong and.
Yeah, my thing is I realize that a lot of this is on me because I came into this thinking like big, time spanning, and it wasn't what I wanted it to be. So that's mostly on me. But it is a little bit too long. You could have cut out big sections of it, and it still would have been fine, or split it into 2 issues of 40-page stuff. I think would have been fine too.
I think that almost.
Yeah, I'm tired of 80 pages right now.
I think that would have been more frustrating to me though if it was the exact same but split in 2, because I would have felt like it would been one issue of just the same thing over and over again, and then the second issue would start that way, and then do everything just the same.
You'd probably think the first issue was fine because you're not sick of it yet, and then when you buy the second issue and start reading that's when you get annoyed, right?
Yeah, most lately.
That's probably true too. Again, since I've been back on the show, we've had a lot of 80 pagers, and I'm just kind of like, it's just a lot every week.
For sure.
If I have an 80 pager every 6 months, cool. But like since I've been back for the show for 5-6 weeks now, we've had 4 of them. And it's just like trying to keep up with it.
We're in a weird phase. On the good news, Matt, though, is that the books are definitely slimming down come March. So I would, so anyway, that is Generation Shattered issue 1. Obviously, the art's, it changes art every 5 pages, so it's hard to even really talk about it much. But what are you rating this one, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 6.5.
Connor?
3.5.
Oof.
Ho ho ho. I'll go with a straight 6. It was perfectly readable.
I
nice
hate our
ideas.
System. I really do. You're way more positive on it, but yet I had graded it better.
It's because your scale's broken, man. That's all.
That's true. I do put my thumb on it a lot.
So that'll take us on. Future State, the next Batman, issue 1. John Ridley, Bradley Thomas, and Paul Jenkins are the writers. Again, there was a lot of artists in this one, so we'll mention them as we go through the stories. I'll start off by saying I really enjoyed 2 out of these 3 stories. I'm not sure how everyone else felt.
Yeah, I enjoyed the 2 that I read.
Yeah, I loved one of them, really liked one of them, and one of them I couldn't finish.
I read this early in the week along with Metal 7, and I had to skim through it again. And what was impressive to me is that when I got to the last story, and I still skimmed, I still went through the whole thing when I was skimming, because I'm just that kind of trooper. But it was amazing to me how little of that story I had retained from 4 days ago. Amazing.
Yeah, but I thumbed through the. I'm sure you're talking about the last story.
Oh yeah, the Arkham Knights one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure. When I thumbed through it, I'm like, I'm sure this is fine. And then I started reading it again this morning. I was like, I just don't have I just don't have it in me.
So can we talk about? It's well written as well, but Nick Darrington's art and the colors here by Tamara Bonvillain on this first story are absolutely breathtaking.
I have been shouting the praise of Nick Darrington on this show for 3 years now. So damn good.
All this stuff
is one of my favorite colors working right now.
All this stuff at the start where it's there's a criminal in a back alley and you've got the blues and the greens and the yellow light sort of and all the nighttime colors and the Batman jumping down. All of this fighting, all the stuff with the later in the story rather with the magistrate cops who've got the permission to just kill on sight. That's sort of how vicious. So you have this very meta story where the idea of cops just shooting people for minor crimes is a legal this is enforced. They're allowed to do this thing,
Yeah, so Gotham's become a full-on police state run by someone called the Magistrate, and I'm sure we're going to be shocked when we find out who it is, right? Just because of Tim again. Yeah, right.
I hope it's Tim. It's Tim Drake. Team Tim Drake 2021, baby.
I was thinking it might be Barbara. at this point.
You shut your mouth.
It doesn't feel nice, does it?
Also, I mean, so just a couple of things here. So you've got this idea of this Batman, and specifically a black Batman, who is saving teenagers and like lower criminals from being just gunned down by the police for things that obviously don't deserve being gunned down for. So it gives this Batman a very specific kind of mission statement and goal. But on top of that, that's why I also mentioned the art, is that when the two cops do find like the beat up thug that Batman's left and you get the spotlights, it's very animated series. Like that's the opening of the animated series where they find the two guys like tied up.
Yeah.
I felt that as well. You know, the panel where Batman's like coming up with the grappling gun across his face.
Yes.
The spotlight on him.
That
felt like animated series as well.
And I'm sure that's on purpose, right?
Oh, yeah.
We know that Ridley's had something like this up his sleeve for a while now. Because this was like kind of the first thing we'd heard about when Generations got mentioned. Like we're talking almost a year ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Was that Ridley had a Batman story. And so I definitely feel like this is on purpose trying to, you know, not draw comparisons, but, you know, homage, like what at least I think our generation holds up as like the best Batman.
Oh, sure.
Right?
I think what gets me a little bit, the only thing that's annoying me a little bit of this issue, and it's not the issue's fault, but it's because they chose to tell us who the new Batman was, so it's a little annoying that this issue sort of teases you that it might be Luke that's narrating before it sort of swerves you when it reveals that the brother Tim in the hospital.
Right, but I still feel like I don't know. I feel like the storytelling's still so good that if it turns out to be Luke and not Tim, or something
actually
happens
that's a
to
fair,
Luke,
this is a fair
to take it.
No, this is a fair point, actually. I don't think it actually tells us in this story, technically, that it is Tim.
No, it doesn't explicitly didn't. And
No.
I thought that was interesting because, and that's why I was a little bit disappointed that we knew already, because this whole issue plays like it's Luke still. Like, at no point, beyond what we bring into it with our external knowledge, at no point does this issue even suggest that it's not him that's Batman.
And it could be either or. That's how I read it, was like, well, it's one of these two brothers. Are they going to swerve us? Are they
really go out of their way where, you know, Luke was like, oh, you know, had a late night, and, you know, they're like, well, we don't need another Bruce Wayne. And he's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, and it really plays like it wants us to think it's Luke.
Yeah, their mom's very anti-bats. Everyone seems to hate Tim in the family because they, you know, abandoned them. Some of the stuff we get here, we have Little Santa Prisca, which I love, and we have
I love it. And you have the Banes,
the gang of Banes,
and they all have to. They all, you know, and it's very gang culture that we see in pop culture, where you take out one of the other guys and to earn the mask. And
you've got them essentially try to initiate these two teenagers and try to hand these kids a gun. And one of them's like, no, this is like extreme. They want us to shoot someone. And the other kid's like, no, this is the way things are. And it's sort of setting you up that right away, okay, so here's two kids that this Batman is going to have to intervene and try and like save from this path. And, you know, I think that all works. There's some other stuff to set up, though. We have a cop who's introduced here.
Who reminds me of Terry's friend Max from Batman Beyond.
Sure, Whitaker.
The whole vibe, which I like. And talking to a former cop that's at a batting cage.
Well, Whitaker was the one I was talking. I was talking about the one in the batting cage. Whitaker is the one that she comes to see. And she talks about how there's an ex-cop who might be helping criminals pull jobs, with the caveat that they leave town after the one job. So obviously she's maybe suspecting that it's him, and that's why she's kind of poking around here. But it's set up this mythology. I think this issue does a really good job. And this is the thing, because there's 3 stories in this book, and they're all full issue size. They're all 20 pages each.
Which is, from what I gather from the solicits, kind of going to be the standard format going forward for things. They're going to be trying stuff like this.
Well, they're not going to be full issues, just the backups. They're going to still be shorter than normal length. But yeah, I mean, it sets us up for the idea of like getting multiple stories in one.
Or anthology style books that where, you know, characters that wouldn't normally be able to hold.
To be fair, admittedly, I'm saying that. I'm assuming it's like when some of these new books come out, I'm assuming it's like a 20-page and then a 10-page backup. For all I know, it could be 2 15-page stories. And maybe it is an even thing. I mean, I don't know.
A half and half, right? Well, no, what I love about this issue too is that it is, and it's a combination of the Arrington art too, but it's very street level Batman, who I feel we haven't had in a long time at this point. Like,
there's
King was kind of doing bigger
You've got to go back to
grand
early New
stories.
52 stuff, really, I think.
Yeah,
some of
there's
the
no-
early Snyder stuff.
There's
I
no
think was pretty
mastermind sort of supervillain stuff, big plots.
Right.
You know, it's all just crime organizations and corruption with the magistrate, and that sort of
Right,
which
and
it's very early days Batman stuff. Yeah.
and I really like that because it is such a switch up. It's a change up that I feel Batman needs to be refreshed every once in a while, because like I was getting tired with the Tynan stuff of it just always being like the biggest thing. And here now we're focusing on like there's family dynamics and, like Pete just said, corruption within Gotham, and the little gangs, and Batman trying to save innocents from it any way that he can. So it's distinctively Batman, but also fresh.
Yeah, and I think because the art is so good, when you have this sequence of like this gang trying to make these two teenagers commit a drive-by shooting, this Batman jumps in, and that page where it's like imagine the camera is inside the car looking out the front window, like from the back seat, and they're turning around talking to the guys in the back seat, and you see Batman like in the headlights jump down onto the front of the car, the bonnet, or so the hood do you call it? I have to think about that.
Yeah.
And like that is a phenomenal page, and the sequencing and the action and the pacing of it is really good.
Spectacular stuff.
But yeah, but you have this thing where he's like, okay, I have to get you kids out of here because the magistrate are going to shoot you on sight. They're just going to kill you. So I'm taking you guys to child services. You're going to make something in your life. It's your choice at least now. But and then the tease at the end is this gang coming after someone. I'm not sure. Is this the cop Whitaker? This is the only person I thought it might be.
That's who I took it as. So
yeah, and they look very Red Hood inspired.
They do.
Yes.
It's like unless of a sort of circular dome, it's more sort of rigidly like parts like shaped.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yep,
a lot of edges on it. But
yeah, but just definitely the whole mask thing where the magistrate wants to take them all out. Yet, so Batman wears a mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so do the criminals that we meet. We have these guys, we have the Banes, and the whole thing is earning a mask. So there's definitely like this black and white at play here in this police state, which that's something subtle that Ridley and Darrington do really well throughout this.
Yeah.
I came into this kind of not cranky because I was expecting big things, but I was like, okay, another Batman story. And then when it turned out to be like really good, I was like, okay, I'm definitely here, because I didn't like the idea of paying extra money.
Oh sure.
For this.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. Like I didn't know what to expect from these future state issues, and there's definitely a mixed sample of results from this first week. But when I started this one, it was within a page. I'm like, I think this may be really good. This first story at least is going to be really good. I'm feeling it already. I'm feeling it.
And so then I was just like, okay, you won me over. So
yeah, and I mean, I think we're pretty clear the consensus of us now is 2/3 of this issue is really good.
I'm happy to hear that you agree with that, because I think the middle one is aided a little bit if you read Batman and the Outsiders, because it's very much a follow-up in a lot of ways to that.
No, I get that, and
story.
I'll get to my specific thoughts on that when we get there. But yeah, just this one, I was a little bit apprehensive with Ridley, because I really didn't like what I read of the that first issue of the other history of the DC universe.
Yeah, I still haven't, just because I remember seeing your tweet of going like, oh yeah, 45 minutes is enough, and you're like, I'm still only a third of the way through.
Yeah, it was like a prose
dense.
novel, basically.
Yeah, I think what that tells me is that he knows exactly what he's doing. It's just that the other history was never meant to be a straight comic book. That clearly shows that he knows how to write a comic book.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
I'm still going to, I won't say knock him for that. That wasn't for me, should we say then. That was basically a prose thing. This here, where you've got Darrington and Bonvillain on the colours, who, by the way, is doing the stuff with Dan Mora for Tamaki's Batman stuff.
Oh, Detective Comics. Okay. That's good. That's good news.
When you've got an art team like this, you want to have that restraint and not just cover it all up with words. And I'm glad that he clearly knows how to do that.
And this didn't even feel remotely wordy to me. This felt like
not at all.
Perfectly paced in the dialogue.
Well, and I also feel that him being a screenwriter too.
Mike.
Yeah, this was times where he knew to shut up and let the cinematographer do their job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say there's a nice balance there. I want to see what other comics he's worked on, because I know he's done a couple at this point.
Now, normally we wouldn't do this with anthologies, and at the end of the show when we're doing top fives, they still all count as one. But I think it may actually be worth, because these are full issues worth the stories, to rate them as we're going.
I was wondering if we were going to do this.
Yeah. So, because I don't want to rate this as a. I mean, we can maybe do a collection rating at the end as well if you want, but
it's going to feel so unfair dragging it all down for that last story.
So I would rather rate them individually as well, since they are full stories. And so, what are you rating this first part? And the good news is this is one that's out. This has got 4 issues, so we get 4 issues of this story. Whereas the backup stories are only in like 1 and 3 because they alternate with 2 other backups.
Right.
So, good news.
I'm giving this chunk of the story, right? This is getting a 9. I really like this.
Connor?
Yeah, I'm throwing in with a 9 too.
Yeah, I'm also giving it a straight 9. I thought it was fantastic. I was in love with it.
Really good.
So that takes out the second story, which is the Outsider story, which is mainly Katana focused, although the Duke's around, and obviously there's the big tease at the end.
Katana looking like a straight up manga character. I don't enjoy manga.
She's got a jetpack. She's got a goddamn jetpack.
This is Brandon Thomas writing and Sumit Kumar on the art. Which I literally just read These Savage Shores, the Ram V book, 2 weeks ago, and absolutely loved Kumar's art in that with some of the pacing choices.
This is the thing. After that first story, I almost felt bad getting into the second one about the art. And I will say, I do think I preferred the art in the first one, but this art is very good. And the action and the momentum, because there's a lot of Katana, like, you know, rolling around, jumping around, kicks and dives and all that sort of stuff. Or even just when she's like she's like blocking all the bullets with her sword at one point.
Anyone who follows me on Twitter will have seen me post a couple of weeks ago when I was reading These Savage Shores a page from that I just praised the flow of, and the way the art led your eye around the page in a unconventional order, not just left to right, down the panels.
I think what helps this
page just like that.
I think what helps us as well in following the previous story is that it's not like it's a similar art style. It's very different. It's good in its own way, but it's a very, very different look.
There's no direct comparison in your mind. It's an immediate switch as no, we're doing something different now.
Yeah, so Duke's like basically breaking people out of Gotham because the Magistrate have got it kind of under lockdown. He's breaking people out. So it's set kind of in the same world as obviously the main story. And Katana, not the most friendly right now. He's kind of mad at Duke. He's like, you have to pick if you're on the inside or the outside. And of course, there's a lot of like almost puns with like, we're on the outside kind of.
But see, I love that gives the outsiders a different branding.
Sure.
They're the outsiders because they are outside of Gotham.
Yeah, like that's that first page is outside Gotham and inside Gotham, and it's right. Like, okay, I get it. Yeah,
and there's a great 2-page layout where she's going through the building, and this is where it really, because not only do we have characters from the Outsiders on like as the main characters, Katana and Duke, but even Caliber when he shows up here as one of the villains from that run. Is a nice touch.
This is the page I love with the flow and leading your eye, where you follow Katana around down the stairs and then down through the floor at one point, and it always leads your eye exactly where you need to go. There's never any doubt, which is not the same for every comic. And there's one later in the show that I'm really going to complain about this with.
But like, it reminded me of Old Boy, the hammer sequence, right?
Yeah.
Check that.
It's a multi-floor. It's a multi-floor hallway fight. That's what it is.
Yeah. And then in Mr. Miracle, when they're going through Apocalypse, him and Barda.
On the vents and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and you follow it through and stuff, and it's just like, I like that style where they fully take advantage of panel layout and whatnot here, that you can, that you do follow it very well. So I'm looking up Sumit Kumar because I've heard the name before, and their art's popped up in like the Detective Annual, and Pennyworth RAP, and Batman Secret Files. So that's just the DC work.
I definitely recommend anyone who, especially if you've been enjoying Ram V stuff on the show, check out These Savage Shores. It's a vampire book meets the Indian equivalent in their mythology.
Done.
It's a 5-issue miniseries. It's all out. Go grab it. It's fantastic.
Of course, Matt's in for that.
Yeah, of course. But see, here's the thing. I've seen Connor talk it up a lot, but I was like, okay, he's just on a Ram V kick right now. But then
I am that too. I'll be honest.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, well, vampires. Say, oh wait, a different cultural depiction of vampires. I'm in. I love monsters. So
yeah, and it's Sumit Kumar on the art.
Right. So that's good enough. But back just this whole back too. You get Caliber shown up, I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Brandon Thomas knows how to play with in this, and if we get books, from him coming out of this, awesome.
Yeah, and it's a long fight that plays out with Katana and Caliber until eventually some grunts show up and kind of interfere. And there's this great moment towards the end here where there's this great page where there's lightning coming down towards one of the grunts, and he looks up and goes, "That lightning, why is it black?" And of course you just kind of like smile because you're like, well, I mean, of course it's different than normal because obviously black lightning is not traditionally being black, but it does make you those keywords, lightning and black, and then you see sort of the figure of pure light sort of coming down from the lightning.
Like, what the hell happened to him?
Yeah, and that's the cliffhanger. It's this Katana looking at him as this sort of like lightning being and asking what happened to him, which they are here, by the way. I really love, especially it's on the second page. There's a sort of close up of her head looking at him.
The one with just the 3 dots in the word bubble.
Yeah, with the big white eyes, just sort of looking at him, and just I don't know, playing with the colors and the blue light hitting her. I thought was really nice. But he's there with a warning. He's like, okay, we'll get to why I am like this now, but that's not important right now. What's important is that one of the people that's with Duke is actually a double agent for the Magistrate, so they're in trouble. So that's a cliffhanger. So it's only a 2-part story. So
yeah,
I'm excited
mildly
to see.
Annoying. We have to wait till issue 3 to get more of this one because
The good news is though is that issue 2 doesn't have the next story. It's
right.
Well, are we
just
rating
here,
this one?
Yeah, we all rate this one. Yeah.
So real quick, when it gets to the Black Lightning, you get the introduction bubble or the box, and it says the principal, Mr. Secretary, current status missing. So that's again them playing with the continuity because wasn't he the Secretary of Education under, was it Lex or Pete Olson or whatever? If people know,
you might be right.
Yeah, so just the fact that they're playing with that, and then her saying only dark magic could have done this. And I'm just like, oh, give me more of... If they just did a book that was just Katana and Black Lightning, I would be so there for it.
You may, honestly...
that Brian Hill did.
If nothing else, you may get one of the backup stories might be them on. Because that's the thing they're kind of trying to train us for. At least that's what it seems to be from March onwards, is the idea that some of the backups will be an ongoing 10-page book for, runs. Like,
Right. And that's...
So.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, rating this.
Yeah, we give it a Matt.
I'm going to give this an 8. Like it's still real good, but yeah.
Yeah, Connor.
I'm gonna go with the 8.5 actually, and the only reason it's not the 9 is I think because I didn't read all of the outsider stuff, and I was missing a little bit of the context with Caliber, for example. But I loved all of the flow, all the stuff that was there, the art. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to straight 8 as well. I'll agree with Matt. I think the action is so good, the art is really nice. I love Katana getting to feel like a badass. Sometimes like some of these characters who never feel like they get the spotlight, it's nice when they do get that moment, and she is painted as just being a completely unstoppable machine. But elegant, of course, because it's all martial arts and there's lots of roles and stuff, and the art shows that off really well. So yeah, there you go. So then the third story. And that's the thing, I had forgotten what all the stories were going to be, so I get to this third story. The first page just didn't really give me anything. I'm just sort of reading some narration. There's an explosion, there's a drone, whatever. And then a couple pages go by, and then I get to the Arkham Knight, the Astrid Arkham Knight from the detective run that we all gave up. And I went, oh no.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, because I'm seeing like a team of like villains, but all dressed up with Batman, I was like, oh man, is this Azrael? Like, did Azrael, is Azrael going to war with the Magistrate inside Gotham? And then it just started, led by me, Astrid Arkham. I was like, I'm out. I don't, like,
yeah.
I've already hit my limit right now.
I read it, I finished it, I gave it the chance. I'll tell you right now, Matt, you made probably the correct call. I don't think this is worth reading, this last one. It is kind of a chore. It is by far the most wordy of the 3 stories. It just felt overwritten to an extreme degree. And it doesn't really amount to much. As the team's looking for Killer Croc, they find him in the sewer. She mentioned Two-Face is on the team, Zaz is on the team, Clayface. A bunch of Arkham people, basically. And yeah,
Zaz doesn't play well with others.
Nah, they end up. It turns out they're actually using Wayne Manor as their base. So obviously, Bruce isn't there right now.
Right.
And that's
Bruce
all
is,
fine.
Presumed dead, right?
Yes, yeah,
right.
he's presumed dead. And yeah, it basically just ends with them. Like, there's this one sort of guy for the magistrate with like a sort of very Red Hood-esque helmet on, number 12. I can't remember what they call him, but it basically ends with them defeating him because he's been hunting them, and they kill him and they leave him with like these helmets on like a pike in the middle of the street. It doesn't really have much of a cliffhanger, but it still says continues in future state. Next Batman issue 3. So whatever. I mean, I have very little to say about it other than it was a chore to read, and when issue 3 comes out, I will not be reading part 2 of this story. I will read the other 2 stories in that issue quite happily. This one, I will ignore. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, I got 3 or 4 pages into this, and then I was just like, do you know what? Screw it. I don't need this.
Yeah.
And just I was like, I've got my money's worth, and my satisfaction is full based on the first 2 stories.
To be fair, the price of this wasn't the price of 3 issues. It was more like 2 issues. So
it was but still, this was $6.99, I think.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Honestly, so if you like 2 out of 3, you're fine. You've gotten the right money's worth. But
Yeah, I'll gladly pay for that, for all of the Ridley story going forward, the Darrington art, and then.
And if you're getting something,
I don't know what the next backups are. But for the Outsiders one, definitely.
Yeah, that'll be in issue 3, so there'll be 2 different ones in issue 2.
Which, we might like both the backups in the next one. We might like one, we might like neither. This is a bit of a crapshoot, but we'll see.
Right.
Yeah, so I have nothing else to I mean, the art's not bad necessarily. Jack Herbert's the artist on this.
I think the art, from what I've saw of it and skimmed through, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's very
stock,
standard DC house style.
Yeah, very house style, which is obviously after the first 2 stories kind of disappointing just because it doesn't look anywhere near as
it feels very
good.
Mundane after the first 2 spectacular art stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I have such a just a lack of intro. I've got such an apathy for Astrid Arkham as a character that, I mean, it could have won me over. If the story was good, it could have won me over, but I don't think anything in it's actually that interesting. So yeah, I would happily skip part 2 of this.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm rating it, it's like I don't know, a 4 or 5. Kind of in that, just like not terrible, but it's really mundane and boring and overwritten. So there you go. I guess if we're rating the book as a whole, which is kind of a hard task in a lot of ways, but especially, I mean, should you rate it as a whole, given that you didn't read the last chapter?
I feel like you kind of have to, though. Still, like if you paid for the whole thing and this is the product as a whole,
right? Well, what's the average of what I give it, a 9 and an 8
and a 0.
So, and a 0. So what does that average out to? That's what I would give this. So,
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that averages out to something like a 6, and I feel like that doesn't feel like it actually.
Right.
No, hold on.
The way I'm going to do it, because I gave a 9 and an 8.5, and then this I did not finish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to knock it down to an 8 overall. I'm just kind of going to, okay, those first 2 stories were very good. The last one was really bad. But overall, it still averages out pretty highly in my mind.
Yeah, because I don't think an average is even worth anything if you really care about the first 2. You're not mad because you didn't like the last one. You'll just ignore it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's basically there's less weighting on the 3rd story, but it still has to bring down the score a little bit just by its nature of existence.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because it could have been $1 or $2 cheaper if it wasn't there. So
yeah,
that's worth something. All right, Matt, what's your rating for the overall?
I'm going to give overall an 8.5. Just split the difference between the 2 stories.
Mm-hmm.
And just ignore because I read 3 pages of the other one, so I give that one an incomplete.
Yeah.
So,
I'll go with the. So I give a 9 and an 8. I'll go with a straight 8 overall, and just sort of, go with the lower score to account for the fact that the last story was just kind of a nothing thing that I don't want to read any more of. So there you go. That is the next Batman, which was basically 3 issues worth of story.
Stuff.
Future State, Superman of Metropolis issue 1 is up next, and this is Sean Lewis and Brandon M. Easton writing, and then again there's a bunch of articles. There's 3 stories here, so this is not 3 full-length stories. This is 1 full-length story and 2 sort of 10 pages, give or take. So I was going to say I didn't really like this at all.
Oh man,
I liked the Mr. Miracle story, and
that's the best one. I'll give the Mr. Miracle one. has the best art, I think, and was the most interesting. I think there's some nice ideas in the main story with John, but I think it is. It reminds me of a lot, actually. It reminds me a lot of the early Rebirth Superwoman, where there's some really cool ideas, but the whole thing's overwritten in a shorty read.
I like this a lot.
Well, I'm glad someone did. You know what, Matt? I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
And it's not just for the reasons Connor thinks, right? Like.
Oh yeah, I already predicted Matt's panel of the week is from this story.
And I'll spoil that, and it's not. It's close, but there's other things that happen in other books.
This was definitely in consideration, though.
Yeah, definitely. What I like that I feel that who's the writers on this first one is Sean Lewis. Yeah. What I like about is that it feels so. This is a future state book, right? Mm-hmm. It feels like stuff has happened since. And that this is a very real world to John, right? It doesn't feel like they just added this stuff.
Before we go on, I'll explain the context of what this Metropolis is like, just briefly. Mm-hmm. So there is basically in John's early days of Superman, his first year of Superman, he fought the real Brainiac, right?
Right.
And it was his only time really doing it, because after that Brainiac ended. But this company took over and sort of like built this new tech out of Brainiac, which has become known as brain cells, this tech, and it's been kind of starting to take over people, which is kind of the current problem that John's facing. But there's also this heavy military angle where they're coming to get the brain cells, and there's going to be a lot of collateral damage.
There's a company called Trojan, which I just took as
this is one of my pet peeves in a lot of fiction. Stop naming things Trojan when it's just because we know, all right, they're going to be the bad guys. We get it. You don't need to.
Well, as a fan of the USC Trojans, that's not always true. Unless you're a Notre Dame or UCLA fan.
I said in fiction.
Yeah. Well, them being good is a fiction now too, so it's fine.
So the big thing in this issue, right, just to get the basic gist of the story, so John is helping fight off the army and try to deal with brain cells himself. The threat becomes so big though, that he gets his Kalex army to shrink down Metropolis and bottle it like Kandor, which is actually important for the other stories, because the other stories are both set in Metropolis, which are inside the ball, right? Because they talk about how the Mr. America one's like, there's a barrier that's appeared, like kind of thing.
And it's important, he says too, that they don't realize that they've been shrunk.
Yes.
Right? That because this is just enough so he can fight brain cells, which is a piece of Brainiac skin that got burned off that this company in Star Labs turned into this tech and stuff. And so I thought, which I didn't finish the other two stories just because I ran out of time, or not time, but just I was like, okay, I'm done reading for now. But that said, I'll go back and read those. I'm like,
I loved that the one who was the most enthusiastic about this story is the one who didn't bother finishing the rest of it.
it was just, again, timing, but I did like this John story a lot, just because of it did feel like there's a story being told that the writer's very cognizant of, because there's history with Kara, and the 10 years he's been Superman, and just he's not his dad.
I think there's concepts that are good. What I don't like though is that it all devolves into Kara goes evil and fights John, and I say evil, it's a bit of a technicality. It's basically there's one of the chemicals or one of the minerals that are in kryptonite has been used by brain cells to manipulate Kara. But I mean, it evolves into Kara's being all evil and red kryptonite-esque and fighting John. I mean, I don't know. I was kind of rolling my eyes at that point.
Yeah, and honestly, this issue, or this part of this issue, felt a lot like, to me, the opposite of everything we just praised in the first two Batman stories, where this felt overwritten. It felt like there was just dialogue and narration boxes everywhere. There was no breathing room. It was just throwing in massive ideas and hoping something sticks. It didn't feel like a cohesive story, even though there's a lot of world building. There's not enough story. Yeah,
I enjoyed and had a good time, like a fun time reading it, because it felt like, this is just a fun story. It's not like, whereas the last with the Batman, with the next Batman, it felt like, no, this is like an important story that's talking about society. Whereas this is just like, hey, remember comics are fun,
Right. But I mean, the Outsiders one doesn't feel particularly important, right? In the same
No,
way. That feels
that's true.
fun. This
I just
feels kind of messy to me.
and I kind of like the mess, I guess. Like, I don't know. I didn't have a bad time reading it. I read through it real quick, and like I didn't feel like okay, I have to finish this now. Like I got through it, and like yeah, it's a little bit annoying that they have to turn Kara on John, but there seems to be a dynamic between them that's like.
I am interested in this dynamic where Superman is gone for whatever period of time, and Kara's still there, kind of as the big cousin to help.
Yeah, well, and then there's doubts that Brain Cells brings on to John about like, oh, you're just like a Kryptonian or a human with a bit of Kryptonian in them. You're not special, and like so just I feel like John's struggling with that. You know what I mean? And that's what Kara kind of represents is like, oh no, she's supposed to be the Kryptonian legacy, I don't know. There was a lot there, almost. I don't want to say subtext, but I mean, I could all be wrong by the next issue, and it completely devolves into something I don't enjoy. But I like this one.
I like some of the concepts. I like the history that it tries to kind of hint at, and I do appreciate the idea that, like, there's a sort of an opinion from some people inside the Bottle City in the next two stories where Superman, his old man would never have done this. This is like a mistake that he's made, that he's shrunk this city down, blah blah blah. Well, I think the best thing I can say though to sum up my feelings on this is when I got to the end of this story and I turned the page and realized there was backups, I was like, wait, I thought that was already 40 something pages. I thought I'd already read 40 odd pages, and I hadn't. I'd read like 20, like a normal amount. It felt like it was double sized.
I can't fault you there. I can't, because everyone's reading experience is their own. Like I can't. But no, I will say too that the one thing that struck with me was when he had went to talk with the people, after Kara had come in and saved them, and they were kind of like, you didn't, she just saved them and then left to go do other things, and that John stayed with them to talk with them, and you know what I mean. That to me, that's him living his dad's legacy. Right? It's not just wearing the suit and saving people. It's taking time for the people, that are in the city.
Does that track with like traditionally that Kara is like that uncaring? I don't think it does.
No, but I don't see it as uncaring. It's that how I read it was she's rushing around trying to do everything at once, right? Because she's wearing the full brunt of I'm the successor to Superman, and so she's like, I got other things to do. I'm gone. Whereas John's kind of like, he can take a little bit more. I don't know. It's almost like a Robin's dynamic.
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with Kara and her own 2-issue series, which just I think the first one comes out next week. I'll know for sure at the end. But it does feel to me a little bit here like they're just doing whatever with her to service John's plot that they want to tell for John in this issue, and. Like I say, it's just a bit overrun. Feels a bit messy. I felt like it was twice as long as it was. Will I read the next one? We'll see. We'll see how I feel. We'll see how I feel come next month.
There's a good chance I won't, and mainly because the one story I did like in this, which is the Mr. Miracle one, I believe continues in a different book from what I remember.
Is that the Worlds at War one, the other Superman one?
I think so. Yeah. Which it's weird that so if you in the Batman one that we just read.
Mm-hmm.
The end of each story told you, right, continues in, which issue, right? So it was continues in issue 3 for the backups. This Mr. Miracle one actually just says at the end, to be continued. It doesn't say where, which I think is a kind of a weird move, especially if it continues in a different book.
Yeah, that's odd. Yeah, I hate to put a damper on Matt's positivity here.
That's fine. You guys, that's fine. I like things you guys don't like all the time. It's fine.
All right, we're rating this first story then. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm giving this one an 8.
Connor?
Yeah, half that.
Half 4. Oh. I'll go a bit. I mean, I'll go straight 5. Like, I just think I like some of the ideas. Art's okay. I don't love it.
It's Tim's. I like Tim's a lot. So
I'd like it more if I could see it.
Alright, with that said, then we'll go to the Mr. Miracle story, which is not obviously scot-free. It's a new character.
Shiloh Norman.
Oh no, it's Shiloh Norman.
Is that not new? No?
No, Shiloh Norman's been
Kirby creation.
Is it? Okay. Alright. So I'm not as familiar with
Wait,
this,
is he?
this version.
I'm pretty
I
sure.
thought Shiloh Norman was a Morrison from Seven Soldiers.
I think Morrison used him there, but I think Morrison
Okay.
did those things of, picking obscure, stupid things that have been in the past. I could be wrong, but I thought it was okay.
I'm gonna let you guys talk about this because I wanted to read this, and I'm gonna go back to read it. But
Yeah, this is Brandon Easton writing this one with Valentine D. Larondo on the art.
Wow.
So
No, Connor's right. Jack Kirby from
There you go.
Mr. Miracle 15, back in '73.
yeah,
So,
clearly I was unfamiliar with this version of the character.
Mhm.
Having not read Seven Soldiers and obviously not Kirby's original stuff. So
Right.
one of those I would like to correct at some point. Other one not so
both?
much. Something about Seven Soldiers does not appeal to me for some reason. I don't know. It's like the Morrison thing that's often this weird corner that I'm just like I don't know.
You're enjoying Animal Man though.
I am. No, I mean,
So
I
you
maybe,
might. Seven Soldiers might be your kind of Morrison.
it may be, but at least
yeah,
at face value, there's things that appeal to me more. So yeah, it's basically Mr. Miracle, just like saving people, dealing with this new barrier. The main action comes from these sort of droids that show up and start causing chaos and have these big sort of almost Doc Ock style like arms that pop out and come after him. Mostly, I mean, this one felt like it was better paced. I liked the art. I thought the art was nice and simple and kind of inky.
I think that's its strongest point. I think it's a pretty simple story. It's
Mhm.
Mr. Miracle trying to find a way to escape, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
Right.
It's Mr. Miracle 101, really. But the art is really dynamic for what this story is. It's very bold and stands apart from everything else in this book, at the very least.
And I think because Batman had set me up for like these stories being full length, I wasn't expecting it to have two backups. So I got to the to be continued and went, oh wait, what? That's over already? That went in quick. And then there was another one. I was like, oh, okay, it was only 10 pages. Alright,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, it's really simple. I mean, it's not a whole lot to say about it, but it was a nice. Like after that first story, this felt like a breeze to read. So I'll say
Yeah,
that.
definitely. This went in so quick.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I'm rating it, I would probably just give it like a nice solid 7. I wouldn't go any higher than that because I don't think the story's anything particularly special, but
That's fair. I might give it a 7.5 just because I really like the art, but in the same kind of range.
and then the third story is a Guardian story, again set within the bubbled city. Or the ball, I should say ball. Is it bubbled? I don't know why. It looks like a big bubble from the inside. So we have this story with Guardian, who is starting off with driving this ambulance that's on fire, and he's on a race against time. But then we go back in time. I will say this was kind of a mixed bag. This story,
Mhm.
again, there's some things I like about it. I thought it did too many there was too many panels that said so many hours earlier. Then it did it again. Like, so it does 24 hours earlier at the start, which is fine because you have the tease of like what's coming up later. That's a common story mechanic.
Mhm.
But then later on, it does it again for like one panel of Jimmy with 15 minutes ago. But there's also a 72 hours later at one point. And
It's all over. Yeah.
yeah,
And
Jeez.
I was under the impression from the first story that it was for the people in Metropolis, it was a bit of a mystery of what happened.
mm-hmm.
Whereas this was just straight up like, oh man, who'd have thought Soups would put the whole city in a snow globe?
Yeah, I assume this is set a little bit later than the Mr. Miracles, because the Mr. Miracle one's like clearly it was a mystery at first. Like, what is going on? That seems to be a bit later when people understand to some extent.
Actually, do you know what? I tell you about it does mention they're 6 months in, so I guess they've figured stuff out.
Yeah. So there you go. You would like to think they'd have some sort of idea after 6 months.
Yeah, no, that is fair. That was me on that one.
Yeah, but so that's the evil villain like kidnaps Jimmy, and has a bomb on this ambulance, which is what the Guardian's trying to like get away from safety. So actually, it ends in a cliffhanger where Guardian seems to have driven it into the water off the bridge, and his shield is floating in the water. So did he die? Did he not?
Yeah. This story actually has one of the, when I mentioned earlier the flow thing that I had a problem with,
Mhm.
with the way it draws your eye. There's a 2-page spread with the Guardian. He's like jumping over some rooftops. Is kind of the look of it.
Oh, I actually agree with this because I
This
also
is
was confused by this.
Horrendous, because it starts in the top left. You've got a narration box. You follow it across as he jumps across the roof, and as he lands, there's a narration box right there. So you want to follow it and go straight down. And you go down, and then you realize, oh, hang on, there's half a goddamn page I haven't read yet that needed to come first.
Yeah. It's kind of awkward. It's a really awkward layout because, like you say, him jumping across at the top leads your eye that way, and it would be fine if there was no narration boxes there, but because there's a narration box right under him that then leads down the page, you naturally, and most comics that do this would want you to go down that side and sort of maybe work your way back around like a sort of circle, but
which
it doesn't.
Is what I assumed was going to do because that. Do you know as well? I think if there was like some separation for that first narration box where he lands, if that was distinctly in the panel below, that was like, no, there is some separation here. Go back across. But because it pops out across up a little bit into the upper space,
yeah, because
it really makes you want to read it.
Because in the two buildings, there's like other panels of things, and if that narration box was just inside the building, it would just feel like, okay, so it's a 2-page layout with like a horizontal thing all the way across, and then you'd have the 2 blocks of 4 in the middle, and then you'd have the horizontal one at the bottom, and it'd be fine. But as it is, it's really confusing.
Yeah, it's a mess of a page.
I'd forgotten about it, but as soon as you started talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I did have a problem with this. I'm thinking about it. Yeah. So mixed bag. So I mean, the Superman one overall, this Superman of Metropolis one. I don't know. I feel really kind of mixed to negative on it overall.
Yeah, I don't think I can give overall. I don't think I can give it above a 6, given that I liked the middle one, but that was like 10 pages, and the other 2 were just kind of a mess for me.
I like the middle one as a 7. I thought the first one was a 5. The third one, because we haven't read that on its own yet. Yeah,
I mean, probably another 4 for me, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, I'll probably be similar in the sense that I'll give it another 5. So, I mean, I guess at this point I can just average it at 5.5 and call it a day. Actually, no, it'd be 5.3.
Yeah, see, but you're okay with that because you didn't enjoy the first story that much, right? It's not like the Batman one. You don't want to sink it.
Yeah, but I really like 2 of those stories in the Batman one, whereas this one.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right, you could justify this one.
Yeah, this one I really didn't like 2 of them, and then one I was like, yeah, it's all right. So I mean, the scale here is a lot lower, unfortunately, which is a shame. So hopefully the World's at War, the one that's got actual Superman elsewhere, is going to be better.
That one I think is written by the guy who's taking over.
I think
Superman
so. Yeah. So hopefully that's good because that's actually, you know,
it's actually like a bit of a barometer for it.
The funny thing is though, at the same time, even if I don't love it, I can't take it completely as a sign of the ongoing book because this is such a separate, like in the future 2-parter or whatever that.
Yeah, unless it's just bad writing as opposed to bad ideas.
Yeah, because I think I've got an example of this later, honestly, when I'm talking about someone taking over a book in the future state issues, maybe only representing what the run is going to be to a point and not really being able to use it as a gauge. But anyway, that's future state Superman of Metropolis.
What did Matt end up rating that one?
Well, I can only rate the story that I read.
They read the first one, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got an 8, so.
All right. Future State, Wonder Woman issue 1, Joelle Jones. Nice easy one, this, because it's just Joelle Jones.
Just Joelle Jones.
Yep. Nice and easy. Yep. So this is our real introduction to Yara Flor, our new Wonder Woman character. And I have to say, so I read this after a couple of other things, and I was very mixed in the Superman one. I'll talk about some other stuff afterwards, but I have to say, this was such a pleasant start where I'm like, oh, this is nice and well paced. It's letting the art breathe. It flows really well.
Who'd have thought she'd let her own art breathe?
I know. But right away, this felt a lot more. And Jordie Bellaire as a writer, I haven't experienced much of. She did some.
Joelle Jones.
Sorry, what did I say? Bellaire.
You said Jordie Bellaire, who is doing the colors on this?
Yes.
Right.
Freudian slip. Okay, but
gotcha.
What it was, if I remember correctly, did Joelle, or was it Jordie Bellaire? No, see, now I'm confused. Maybe it's Jordie Bellaire.
Joelle Jones started Catwoman.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
And
I was thinking
like 4 or 5 issues where it was art and writing before it just switched just to writing.
Right. So I was thinking of someone. I was thinking of Jordie Bellaire thing. Anyway, so so I thought this was pretty good. I thought this was pretty good because I thought it had I think Yara in this issue has character. Her banter with her Pegasus or whatever it is, and the banter with the little fairy imp thing.
Hypora, which I just looked up, and this is why I love. Well, no, I love.
As soon as it mentioned the other Thunder God, I was like,
Yep.
oh, that's gonna love this.
Yeah, so
of course.
for me, the Wonder Woman like should always play with different mythologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna pull. So I had zero like doubt that this was coming from the Amazonian mythologies, and it does so much to the point that it says it's represented as a dark-skinned, small Native American, naked with very long red mane, smoking a cigar, and is very mischievous. So the fact at one point where the Kaipora says like, "I was grumpy because I was quitting smoking," like I thought that was just a throwaway until I just looked up the whole. So the fact that Jones is doing
that's a neat reference.
the mythological stuff there, which I feel like for me that's when Wonder Woman's really at its best.
Yeah.
Is when it's
you
playing with
also
it.
find it fascinating that the Tupa, the thunder god of this
Right.
this place. It's fascinating that so many religions have the thunder god at the head of their pantheon.
Right. Well, because it's the sky god too, right? Like
Right.
It's the big, wide open sky, right?
Yeah.
So
It's just so fascinating to me the way that so many cultures kind of developed such similar ideas.
Yeah,
and then we see about Odin. Odin's not really the sky god, but Thor is. But Thor tended to be the one that got the most worship, right, in the communities. So yeah, Connor's onto something.
So yeah,
Anyway,
the first bunch of pages are her taking down what looks to be like, not quite a dragon head, but well, yeah, I know it's a Hydra, but it's not really revealed until after she kills it and goes, "That's anticlimactic," and then it reveals, "Oh, here's the other, 6-7 heads." So that was a fun reveal, and I think her kind of nonchalance, and even the fact that she's yelling out Jerry, because I hear someone yelling Jerry, and I'm thinking Seinfeld, right? That's like,
oh, I'm thinking Parks and Rec.
Okay, in that tone, with the right tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The biggest penis I have ever seen. So, but yeah, so this running gag that the Pegasus is kind of like just doesn't give a shit and just doesn't respond to her. It's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And just the constant kind of almost, because it's a very different Wonder Woman, because it's the story from this point on is that the what would you call the little one again? The Capora?
Capora, yeah.
Yeah. So she like essentially is going to take Yara through kind of the airport terminal to
Underworld.
To Thunderworld, and it is presented with as a customs kind of thing, but with obviously like different takes on the various ideas. With the Cerebus kind of asleep, and there's a great joke at one point where Yara gets really mad waiting for the toll style booth, and she snaps off the metal arm. And she bangs it on the floor, and she turns around, and everyone sort of freezes because the eyes of the Cerebus sort of wakes up, but then just goes back to sleep, and she's like, "Phew," and just sort of like wipes her brow, and I chuckled at that because it was kind of like it gave me this sense of fun to it that was a little bit different.
I agree. It's those small moments that got it for me as well. There's one when she's on the Pegasus flying away from the Hydra, where her sword's still buried in it, and she goes down and grabs it and just goes yoink as she grabs it, and it's just that little moment as well. It's like, oh, that gives me a lot.
It's been a very long time since I've fallen in love with a character like this, just off of one issue. Like, I hope Yara Flor, they find a way to have her stick around.
Oh, they are going to.
No, there's going to be a TV show, Matt. They're going to have a way.
No, I know, but I'm talking like I want her just not in like a Young Justice book or something like that. Like, if they want to do a Yara Flor book with Joelle Jones,
they'll do many.
Think she's guaranteed a backup at the very least.
Well, yeah, because
there is a mini solicited. We're getting at least a 5-issue mini.
That's true.
Yeah. So
I want more.
Well, there may be more after that, but I mean, at least starting in March, you're getting a mini. Well, is it March? Maybe it's April, May. But regardless,
I just like Connor said, the yoink, and then this, and just like, so she's Wonder Woman, but she's not like this graceful, like what we're used to Diana, right? Like Diana would never do any of this. She's graceful and she has etiquette.
Almost stuck up in comparison.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. Whereas Yara's just like, this is exactly who she is, and I love it.
Yeah, she's got an attitude.
Stealing from the dead to pay the toll.
Yeah.
Sumo wrestler.
Yeah, that's what that's what I'm talking about. Where she's super mischievous. Where they're getting to this thing where they have to go into the boat with this Reaper looking fellow.
It's Sharon from Greek mythology, the boatman on the river Styx.
Sure, yes, I don't know any of this, but it's whatever. But in context of the issue, it works for me anyway, right?
Me and Matt are just irrelevant here.
And she doesn't have, like, she's like, wait, I have to pay? There's like a toll I have to pay? It's like, yeah, of course, I'm not going to pay your way. I just said I'd get you here. And she walks back down the line and she notices this, it's like a sumo wrestler's dead walking in the line, and he's kind of like not really paying attention. There's a coin in his hand, and it becomes this, very mischievous, like the arm stretching out from off panel to like try and grab the coin, and it's this kind of mischievous where she, and the way she kind of laughs and smiles at him when she kind of gets caught. Again, there's this kind of playful like she obviously is not an evil character. She's clearly got noble intentions in what she's doing, but she does go about doing it in a very kind of almost kids TV show. I have to do this because it's important, so I'm going to steal from this big fat man, and I'm going to try and sneak around him and get his coin so I can get to the underworld.
He has it. I must get it from her. She's, I don't know. This is also why I love Booster and Guy Gardner as well. And so to see a girl version of it, and it's not like over the top,
Oh, she's already better.
She's exactly with those two.
She's already better than Guy Gardner. Let's not even have this conversation.
Whatever, it's fine.
Ask me again in a year.
But see, I felt this about when I read the Starfire book too, which it's a different kind, but that's in a lot of the same ways. The predicaments that they get in and the reaction. I feel there's a lot of with the Palmiotti Connor Starfire here. So like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting to be about this as much as I was.
Yeah. So basically, here towards the end, we have this coin thievery starts a commotion. All hell breaks loose, and the cliffhanger is that all three heads of the Cerebus, the big dog, is there. That's the cliffhanger. She's like, oh shit. Yeah, but even the way it leads to that final cliffhanger page though, with all this fighting's happening, Yara's kind of in her element, and it's like,
what exactly is her weapon as well? Like it's kind of like the rope with the bullets. Yes, thank you.
Which is another form of a lasso.
It's longer than I traditionally think of them. Because it is like on a long rope, whereas usually I feel like they're on a shorter rope.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of lasso. But no, what I was saying though is that the way it builds to this last page, where you have again the little one's name I've forgotten already.
Kaipora.
Thank you. Where she says, "Oh Yara," and it's a very almost sitcom level of "Oh Yara," and she just starts to what? Like, why are you interrupting me? Oh shit! The Cerebus is here with big red eyes and wants to eat me.
Which I know mythology. I know how they're gonna make Fluffy fall back to sleep, right? Like,
yep.
Music soothes the savage beast. So
sure.
I know. Again, I fell in love with Yara Flor in this. She's a great character and like a nice surprise.
An impactful debut as well for a lot of characters. A lot of characters, like I'll get the first issue and go, oh, okay, there's promise. There's something here. Right. Whereas this one immediately is like, oh no, this is like a fully formed character already. I get multi-facets.
I think what's here, obviously you two are like nerding out over the mythology stuff that they're incorporating, but I think what's really neat about it is that the character is so strong and so likable to just follow into this world that it didn't matter to me that I didn't know all these not in jokes, but like
Oh, and that's important though too, because again, I wasn't sure about the Kaipora. Like I am sure it was a mythological. Like I thought it was like a forest god, but then you come to find out, no, they're kind of more like a pixie. Like
did you look up what the Boitata thing was? That she says, "Oh, you sent that after me." It's like a fire serpent sort of thing, I think.
Okay, see. So now I have to start looking into South American mythologies. That's a big old blind spot.
Yeah, me too.
But this is just this whole thing with how they did Limbo with like it's a terminal, right? And everyone is just kind of hanging out, but it looks different to other people. So even her, when she goes to go to the ferry, it looks like from what I've seen in like movies and TV of like a pier on the Amazonian River. On the Amazon River, with like a little boathouse at the end, because that's what it appears to her. That's what she's familiar with. And so there's a lot of fun mythological stuff at play in addition to all this character work. And it might be my favorite Joelle Jones thing I've ever read.
I probably agree with that. It's a very strong
as a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very strong debut, and because we are getting a mini, because there's going to be more of Yara and they are pushing the character, it's nice to read the first appearance and go, oh, I actually want more of her. Oh, good, fine, bring it on. Because up until now, it's all a bit almost like, it feels like a product. You got a product. You're going to try and force it down our throats.
It's all hypothetical.
And you're going to have like this and that, and that is going to be a TV show. We're going to do a theme song. We're going to have tie-ins. There's going to be toys and merchandise and all these things. But then you actually give me this issue and go, oh, I actually like the character now. Yes, give me more. Let's do it.
It feels less, because I think before this, not that we were assuming the worst, but you see this sort of stuff all the time, and you kind of go, okay, they've got plans. They're just seeing the money. But having read it, you kind of go, oh, they might have actually read this and knew what they were signing up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is I wonder, because I don't know when all these future state issues were written, but I do wonder, the news that they were going to have a 5-issue mini, and then it was only a couple of weeks later that we got the news that there was the TV show in development. I have to wonder if this first batch of future state issues came in, like the early scripts, even before it was drawn or whatever, and someone read this and went, hey, this has staying power. This character might actually be usable and stick around. And then it sort of developed naturally from there, rather than, because I don't know, it feels kind of like that might have happened.
I feel like there's an easy subsect of comic fans that are terrible people that would have just gone, oh look, diverse Wonder Woman, and that's why you're shoving this down our throats. Right. And that will have been the assumption for a lot of them, I'm sure. But this has real quality, like clearly. And I have to assume someone read this and saw that and went, "Oh no, we are doing."
There's a reason. There's a reason why they're not promising as a follow up, the Guardian backup from Superman. Right. Like that's not on anyone's radar.
Right. Well, and see, and you say that, Connor, but about the they'll say it. Oh, it's just diversity, and they don't actually care about the characters. Their arguments are always so hollow, because if they did, like, this is just a Wonder Woman story. It has no Sure, it's a different character, but if you care about Wonder Woman at all, this fits right in with any.
I think it's safe to say, for me at least, I know people definitely disagree, but a lot of my favorite Wonder Woman stories are to do with various mythologies. Obviously, it's mostly Greek, but
for sure,
the Sharp, Brave and the Bold, with all the Irish mythology, love that. And now this here that we're playing with the South American mythologies. I'm so into it all.
Well, just like the character of Ferdinand, right? Yeah. He's not a Minotaur. I always forget what he is, But like, that's the type of stuff that I love with Wonder Woman, where they take what we know with mythology and they twist it, and that's what this was. Even the Hydra. Right?
I mean, I like Ferdinand, and I didn't like that Liam Sharp book, but I didn't like it because it felt impenetrable if you didn't already give a shit about all the various things that were in it, right? I think there's a way to have that mythology in here and make it completely accessible because you love following the character, and that's what this issue was. This issue was completely functional, more than functional. I mean, it always feels like a disservice to just say it's functional, but it completely works despite not really caring about the larger mythology that it's playing with. I'll learn the mythology that's relevant as the book tells it to me, and the stuff that it doesn't explain to me, I don't need to know, and it's fine.
Yeah, you're not going to do what me and Matt do and say, "Oh, what's this name?" And sit there and quickly go and Google. Okay, got it.
No, Komiko, whatever the name was. What was the name?
Kaipora?
Kaipora. Yeah, Pakora. Yeah. Pakora. I'll try and remember it.
Yeah, so the only reason I can remember it is because there's a Brazilian martial art called capoeira. It's very similar in the name to Kaipora, so that's how I remember it.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is she gave me. I was getting like sort of like almost, and this is gonna be a weird comparison given that I'm saying I like the book a lot, but I was getting almost like the little anime character that'll like tell you how to do things in a video game. Like that's what I was getting from her. Yeah. But anyway, that's read the book. Matt, what are you giving Future State Wonder Woman issue 1?
I'm giving this a 9.5.
Whoa! Straight to the top.
Bang bang.
Matt, Connor.
I'm just gonna go with the 9, but I mean, I thought I was going to be high, and then Matt kind of undercut me like that.
Yeah, I did not expect to fall in love with Yara Flor.
I am also going with a 9 out of 10. I'm keeping this moving because this is a long episode, so I'm cutting Matt off right now. So there you go. That's Future State Wonder Woman issue 1. Future State The Flash issue run. Robert Vietti writing with Dale Eaglesham on the art. So, to counteract all the positivity from Wonder Woman issue 1, here we go with Future State Flash. So, here's the thing. The one positive point I'm going to make, not about the issue, right? This is not about the issue itself. I want to be that clear, because I have nothing but bad things to say about this issue. Is that I don't think this is a big deal going forward. in terms of the Flash, as like in terms of present day the Flash stories. However, I can't imagine what idiot, whether it was the writer or an editor who said this is what this story is going to be. What idiot, after we had just fixed Wally and the one shot in Metal and then a little bit there in the issue 7, what idiot said, let's do a story in the future where Wally's been taken over by an evil entity and is killing Flashes?
Yeah. Oh, let's kill Jay by the end of this issue. Yeah, that's what we all.
And Bart.
Let's kill Bart at the beginning.
We start with Bart. We end with he's killed Wallace off panel before the issue started.
Yeah, this was just bad. And I did not enjoy reading this whatsoever. Even the voice,
far from Eaglesham's best work too.
And it was wordy as well. It was really wordy.
So I knew that Eaglesham did the art, but as I'm reading, like, did he not finish? Because it didn't feel like Eaglesham.
It feels a bit rushed.
Yeah, and the voice of Barry I felt was completely off. Like, I just feel like sometimes people find something, like, and I feel like this has been true through, like, even through the Winter story arc, whereas it felt like they were writing him as Wally, right? But that's fine. That was the only thing. Here, though, they took, like, oh, he's a scientist. So now that's all he cares about. Yet, for me, what works about Barry is that he's like this emotional figure that the reason it's the Flash family is because he takes in people, right? Like, not in that Wonder Woman way that she's always trying to fix bad guys, but like there's always that care amongst them. And here it's almost like that's just out the window. And because Wally's evil, and I just
I mean, it's still a terrible idea because no one wants to read an evil Wally story right now. It's definitely clear as the issue goes on that there is something that's kind of taking over him, because later on we actually get like the good Wally's in the Speed Force talking to them as evil Wally's also there doing stuff. So
with different lettering as well, just to make it clear for us. I do appreciate from a craft level.
Oh yeah, from a craft level, yeah. I mean, it's a readable issue in that sense. It's not like a complete mess of a, I can
always follow where things are. I think it's sometimes a little bit messy and overstuffed on a page, perhaps.
Overstuffed, yeah, but not like impossible. So the premise of this is that all the speedsters have lost their speed because Wally's stolen it from them, and to make up for it, they've basically armed themselves with weapons of the Rogues and various other Flash villains, and they're trying to steal the Thinker's cap from the Calculator, who currently has it, so they can basically telepathically go to Wally and try and save him that way.
Because they can't access their Speed Force, so that's all gone. Because of what Wally has done. And so they bust in with all of this stuff, which there's a lot of stuff here, like with Checkmate. If you look at that, there's some stuff to deal with Future State on there. Like there's a I can't talk. Suicide Squad. That's how I'll say that. on the lower thing with Peacemaker, and stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. There's a lot of cool stuff here. And like the Calculator with the Thinker's cap, that's cool too. And then that's where it stops.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that none of us want to read issue 2 of this next month. I think we're all...
Not at all.
Yeah. Not even a chance.
What did the Calculator do that killed Bart?
Well, it wasn't Calculator. Well, was it Calculator? I thought it was just like some of their guys busting in.
No, he has something, because Bart has the Rainbow Raiders glasses, which allows him to ride on the rainbow, from Asgard. I'm drawing a blank right now.
He just pulls out. He literally pulls out what looks like a calculator and presses a button on it,
and it kills Bart. Which
it looks like it turns off the Bifrost, like it smashes behind him, and
I
don't know exactly.
And that was I was like, okay, and then you had stuff with Avery, and I was like, oh cool, Avery's here, and then the Global Guardian. So they talk about she's on the team with New Superman, but Wallace killed all of them too. Or Wally killed all of them. And I'm just like, I'm not liking this. And not just because Wally's evil. It's just, it's not being handled. Like, a lot of the things that you'd want to see are being handled off screen.
It's not a great comic on its own, but I think overshadowing even the writing of the comic is the fact that none of us remotely want a story about Wally being either, whether it's possession and evil entities infected him or whatever. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. None of us want an evil Wally story right now. None of us.
It's one of those things that would be fine in a vacuum, but given the last few years, it's just like, just stop it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So basically, they do their thing. They go and talk to him, but it ends up killing Jay. And the evil Wally entity, whatever it might be.
Well, it calls itself Famine, one of the Riders of the Apocalypse, which is another like interesting thing. But I just wish I cared about the rest of the story. Because
I mean, it ends with basically Barry in these narrations saying, well, I guess I can't save Wally now, I have to stop him no matter what. And he's got all of the weapons from the villains, and that's kind of the end of the issue. I have no idea how this is going to end, and I'll never find out because I don't care.
Yep. I'm with you there.
I don't want it. I just don't want it. So we can scratch that off next month's week 1 list at the very least. What are you rating this, Matt?
This is easily a 2.
Whoa! Well,
yeah.
on a Matt scale, that's like a -4 in our scales.
Yep.
What you
Matt has no in between, does he?
No. What are you giving it, Connor?
I'm gonna give it a 3. In that, like I said, I think that there are some things like the lettering that work. So on it succeeds on some levels. It's just the story and the writing is just not there.
This angered me.
Yeah, I mean the art's obviously not good, the Eaglesham art, but I mean I have very much set a standard for what I rate like a 2 out of 10 in art because it's got a name and it's JRJR. So on that sort of scale alone, thinking about it that way, I'll probably agree with Connor and go with like a 3. But yeah, not a good comic book, and it's not a great comic book on its own merit, but it's also just not good in the context of where it is and now and what the Flash has been recently. So. No. But luckily though, this is not the dude who's taking over the ongoing book. I don't think so. But
with what we've seen in Solicit, they hint at this story about something possessing Wally, and I'm like, no.
Well,
please no.
If they want us not to read the Flash on the podcast, that's up to them to make it that way with stupid decisions like that. So, all right, there you go. That's Future State Flash issue 1. So that'll take us on to Future State Swamp Thing issue 1, Ram V writing with Mike Perkins on art. And this is the team that are doing a 10-issue book, of course, starting in March. So this is very much a very distant future story about Swamp Thing, who has essentially built himself a family. Because there's like an interlude sort of thing that keeps coming into the book where he talks about how he created life forms using the green. And like how he built like a respiratory system and how he built this and that and so on. Yeah,
which I really loved. So Ram V, of course, probably told Mike Perkins, hey, we need like biological, like stuff you'd see in a biological textbook, like Biology 101, but we need to greenify it. And Perkins like, I got you. Because those are some of my favorite art in the book, and the art's really good, right?
I really like those moments as well because it just strips everything else out and just does those. It's really good. And I think what's really interesting is obviously you said this is the team that's doing that Swamp Thing book, which, by the way, you mentioned it's 10 issues. It is, but it's also, Ramby mentioned, it has option for renewal if it sells well, so like another 10 and so on.
Oh, okay.
So
everyone buy it.
You'll pick it up.
Yeah, everyone order your copies of Swamp Thing, you bastards.
But also what I was going to say is, this feels very different from what that book's going to be because we know that's going to be a new thing.
This is what I was saying earlier. I was talking about how even in this case where I like this team and I fairly like this issue. It's not kind of I don't think this is the peak of what I can expect from their Swamp Thing, but
no.
But what I was saying earlier is that even with this being the team who's writing the Swamp Thing book, I don't think this is even like a sign of seeing what they're going to do with it or what it's going to be, because it is so different and it is very much this 2-issue story of this future Swamp Thing. It may have some thematic touches that lead into what they're doing, but I don't think it's going to be very indicative of what their Swamp Thing is going to be story-wise. So
no, not at all, which I'm okay with because I liked this issue well enough. It's probably my least favorite issue I've read from Ramby at all. But it's still it's solid.
It's a little bit too like what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot going on, but it's almost like he's leaving stuff out, like almost like a Hemingway book where he's letting you fill in stuff in between.
Like, this is obviously it's a 2-issue series. It feels like maybe he needed 3 issues for this story.
Because there's a lot at play here, but like so he's looking for humans because he feels like humans Swamp Thing. humans kind of make life worth it almost.
And
this kind of thing.
For the context of that, this is like a post-apocalyptic. You know, the end of the world essentially happened.
And the Green's reclaimed a lot of stuff, but he's created these beings because you get the feeling he was kind of lonely, right?
Yeah, and they call him. What do they call him?
The Green King.
Green.
No,
he's the Green Father.
Green Father.
Sorry,
yeah.
yes.
Or Father Green, whatever
and
the two.
There's like, and I get the impression that the one who's a bit shittier, like the sort of more Loki sounding one, that he's kind of the like one of the first attempts, and he got better at it as he went.
That's what I was looking for. All the names feel like they come from like plant stuff. So you have like indigo. Indigo's not just a color; it's a plant.
Yeah,
you have heather, which is another thing. I was trying to find some of the other names. I'm looking, and all that comes up is that it's a bass drum pedal. So I'm not sure if that's just something from another language too. That's just not coming out.
It very well could be, yeah.
Yeah, but they're going through They're going through the ruins of a city. It sort of gives us kind of some of the stuff. You know, one of the daughters, for lack of a better term, is very Poison Ivy-esque.
Yes.
So, and she seems to be the youngest, which would imply that's why she's the most human, because he's gotten better and better at sort of simulating life, and this is kind of like his best attempt yet. Is very Poison Ivy looking. But of course, the story has them encounter a human being. Yeah, one of their family, for lack of a better term, is shot or stabbed on watch during the night, and it leads them to a human. And they want to, most of the family want to basically kill the guy, and Swamp Thing's like, no. He's scared.
Do you know what this was giving me vibes of?
Yeah.
The recent Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Especially the last one, right?
I can see that.
They have their own band.
Yeah, second one as
apes.
well. But two and three, but mostly three, yeah.
Yeah, and basically Swamp Thing, because like, okay, we're not speaking a language he understands, or not even language, but we're speaking in a way that he just couldn't understand. So he starts speaking to the human and learns that there's a camp, and learns that there's a whole civilization, and that he left the group of people. They left their children and wives behind to try and find something.
And it's they left from Star Fortress.
Yes, and we get glimpses of this at the end of the issue, which is like, it's very militant. There's like an army who are controlling the base. It mentions, I mean, is that Obsidian in like a test tube?
That is Obsidian.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the name of the story for the issue, I believe, was Obsidian Sun. Yeah. So it's like, okay, it's making sense.
So they're using Obsidian.
I'm also wondering now. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think they're using Obsidian to like counteract the climate or the sun or something like.
I'm assuming this is how they're keeping out the green, because the guy mentioned there are no plants, no trees, no green there whatsoever, which is why it's a blind spot essentially that they're hiding out in.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna say. I wonder if that's because traditionally Alan Scott Green Lantern, his weakness is wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if that's why Obsidian was chosen here. If there's something with
I was thinking more just the darkness keeps out the light, which the green.
The light that could be too.
But there seems to be this villain who's controlling this base here at the end, and refers to him as an old friend to Swamp Thing, right? Because he's sort of talking to him in a sort of villainy monologue way.
Looks like Woodrew to me.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure who this was. I was thinking Woodrew, but I mean, you could say that anyone got a melted face, like
I think
in the future.
I think it's the lettering that gives us that impression as well. The green tint makes you go, okay, so this is someone related to the green. And you start putting the pieces together.
Well, and I was thinking of Ram V when he first came to Justice League Dark. It was during the Floronic Man, Flower of Parliaments.
And the other thing as well is, especially if the whole point of the Obsidian is to have a blind spot for the green, it makes sense that a Swamp Thing villain would be thinking that way and wanting to hide from the green and wanting to hide from Swamp Thing. So these things do add up and make some amount of sense. So I would agree that it's good, but it's also not like, it's not blown me away like Ram V's issues of Catwoman have so far. Like it's a solid issue, but it's not like the peak of what I'm expecting of the Swamp Thing.
I'm really excited for his main book when he's doing like a new Indian Swamp Thing, as a new host, like a whole new mythology to tap into and to play with the whole different culture aspect of it. I'm really excited for that. This I'm kind of like, okay, we got 2 issues to tide us over until then, basically.
Yeah, and you look at that opening, like the 2-page spread that kind of gives the history of the story, and it looks like that new Swamp Thing from their story coming forward. It's front and center. So something major happens, I would feel there. That they're tying in. So I'm excited to read it though. I'm not just because of the team involved, but like Swamp Thing with horns is like a whole thing I love.
Awesome.
And I loved it in Eternal Winter. Looks like he's gonna have him in this, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So there you go. What are you rating it, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5. Like it's really good, but it was just like there's something just off enough.
Yeah, Connor.
It's a straight 7 from me in that it's solid. It's pretty good. Just missing a little bit of a spark, maybe. Just needs a bit more space.
Yeah, it's basically that was straight 7, and I think I was going to use this phrase "missing the spark" as well to sort of describe just how I feel about it, which is it's just good, but for some reason I'm just not in love with it. So there you go. That was the last book. So that'll take us out the part of the show where we pick our favorites of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5, which should be an interesting list this week. So I guess we'll start with Matt and his panel / moment.
Yeah, so I wanted to pick something from Metal, and then I got to Generation Shattered, and I was like, oh, there's some stuff here, and then the next Batman, but it's gonna be from Wonder Woman, and it's when she tries to steal from the sumo wrestler, and you get that page that's just the chaos where she yells Alala, which might be like her victory thing, or not a victory, but like a war cry out in her native language, because you got the boat guy in the back looking totally distressed, and then you get Kaipora going oh Yara. So it's a really good moment. All
right, Connor.
I'm going to go with from the Batman Future State issue, from the Outsider's story, the 2-page spread, the hallway fight. Oh, so good.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with next Batman as well, but I'm going with the first story. I think I have to go with basically just the opening. I mean, it's just that opening few pages, because I was just sucked in immediately, and I was just kind of in love with what I was looking at. It was kind of the moment where I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to like this sort of the week, so I'll go with that. Best cover of the week, Connor.
I'm just looking at them. It took me an extra second, sorry, because I didn't have the thing on the computer anymore. I think I'm going to just play it safe and be a standard, boring, stereotypical answer and do the Wonder Woman variant, the Jenny Frison one.
Of course you did.
I didn't have time to look through them all properly.
Yeah.
I do quite like the Coipel cover on the Batman issue, though.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's right. The Wonder Woman 84 covers were this month.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, the Wonder Woman 84 covers finally existed.
Some of those are quite nice.
That is a good cover.
Oh, some of them are, yeah. The one that was on Future State. Oh no, that's not that good. The face is a bit weird.
on which Future State?
I was going to say Flash, but then I clicked on it and the face is a bit weird. I've seen it full size. Never mind. As far as my cover goes, there's a lot to choose from. I think ultimately, some of those Batman ones are nice. Metal's got a lot of good covers, and I think honestly, I may just go with the regular Metal cover, the main one with the 2 Wonder Women.
It's a good one.
Just because, like, I think the moment and the idea of what it represents in the issue, which I don't often take that into account with the cover, but I think in this case it actually works really well, and feels important and relevant. So yeah, I'll go with that. And plus, the whole idea of, back in the past and the present coming together and both being relevant now going forward is also clearly displayed by having those 2 Wonder Women. So, Matt, what's yours?
Frontier. I think I'm just going to go with the regular Wonder Woman cover, the Joelle Jones.
Sure.
It's real nice.
It is.
All right.
I didn't look either. Like Connor, I forgot. I had it up, and we got talking, and I forgot to look.
All right, well, best art of the week then. I suppose I'll go first with that one since I made you 2 go first already.
Out of interest on this, is it as a whole issue or individual stories when it comes to...
I think at the end of the show we have to go as a whole issue. I don't think we can go individual.
That really sucks for some of them.
It does. I think I have to pick next Batman overall, even though the third story is just kind of okay art-wise. I think the Wombo combo of that wonderful Darrington art in the first one, and then the art in the second one, which is very different but very strong in its own way. I think I'm going to go with that because while obviously Capullo was great on Death Metal, I expected it. It's been him the whole time. It was very solid outing to wrap things up. Wonder Woman obviously had great art as well, and then Perkins was obviously really good on Swamp Thing and just it very well. But I have to go with that Wombo combo and say next Batman overall. Connor.
Yeah, I'm probably going to agree. Capullo did some great work, as always. I think the thing with Next Batman, though, it was two really strong stories with very different art styles as well. That they weren't even like complementary; they were just so different. So it gave me I had this whole variety of it as well. Yeah, great stuff.
I can see it in Matt's eyes. He's not saying the same thing. What is your pick, Matt?
Oh no, I'm not, because it came down to it's Swamp Thing, which I enjoyed with Mike Perkins, or Wonder Woman because Joelle Jones, so I'm a big fan of. But it's Death Metal for me because you got Capullo, then you got Paquette, and you got those 2 pages of Hitch.
Honestly,
I just feel like
as long as no one said Generation Shattered, I think we're all right.
Well, because there's one major person that prevents that from happening.
I don't know. It's a bit of a mess anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it shifts about far too much to even consider it, I think, in the best stage. But, all right, so that'll take us on to top 5 books. Matt, take it away.
All right, number 1 is Wonder Woman. 2 is Death Metal. 3 is the next Batman. 4 is 4 is Superman, Metropolis, and 5 is Swamp Thing.
Connor?
Yeah.
I think mine's pretty similar because I'm going Wonder Woman, Death Metal, next Batman, Swamp Thing, and then I guess Superman and Metropolis, but mainly just the Mr. Miracle story. But I mean, it was better than the Flash, so you know. And...
Well,
yeah, I think I'm conflicted because it's. I will go a little different. I'll say next Batman at number 1. I'll say Wonder Woman at number 2. I'll say Death Metal 7 at number 3. And then at number 4, I think we're looking at Swamp Thing. And then number 5. What did I rate things? I think Generation Shard then number 5. I think I rated that higher than
it.
Yeah, I rated that higher than Superman. Yeah.
Interesting though, because obviously I think we all presumably read Death Metal first this week.
Yes.
And when I read that, I was like, okay, that's probably going to be at least one of our number 1s.
Sure, but it was neither.
The fact that none of us picked it was actually a surprise.
Well, when my top 3 books are all 9 out of 10, I think I'm having a good week. So
yeah.
Hard to be mad at that. So there you go. There's our picks of the week, and I will tell you what is coming next week in our very eventful couple months. So, like I say, I feel like we've all dropped Flash for next month, and Superman's a bit up in there. I think for 2 of us at least. Matt will probably still read it. But
wait, what? I was reading.
I was going to say
you'll probably still read Superman next.
Yes, Superman and Metropolis.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of course,
you said
yes.
Flash, and I was like, no, I gave it a 2. Thanks.
I give it a 2. Thumbs up. Thumbs way up. All right. So coming next week, we have Future State Dark Detective, which is worth mentioning is not the 60-page book that the next Batman was. It's still oversized, but it's not as big as that. It's like more of a
48 apparently.
Yeah, so it's annual size basically.
Tamaki and Mora, which is the team going forward.
Yeah, which I'm excited about. I love that team. So that's Dark Detective issue 1. We have Future State Justice League issue 1. We have Future State Teen Titans issue 1, maybe tying into the Academy stuff that we're getting. We have Future State Green Lantern issue 1, Future State Robin Eternal issue 1, Future State Superman Wonder Woman issue 1, Future State Kara Zor-El Superwoman issue 1, and I'll also just tack on here for anyone who's reading them, American Vampire 1976 issue 4 and Sweet Tooth The Return issue 3 are also out. So there's nothing else. It's just what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just 7 Future State issues. That's what we got. So, and I believe the biggest 2 are just annual sized, and then the rest are
3 of them are oversized.
3 are annual sized. Yeah. So
which I'm happy to see.
That's still a much reduced page count from this week.
If you count the annual size as just a double issue, it essentially works out there's about 10 issues worth of content,
which is less than this week by reasonable number.
I mean, yeah, Generations Shattered alone was like 4 issues worth.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how those. And these are a bit more like I don't know what to expect from a lot of these ones, to be honest. I think Dark Detective, because it's Tamaki, like I've got a vested interest in. I like obviously a lot of the characters that are playing these other ones, but we'll see. Some of them will probably be good, some will probably be bad. Hopefully more than...
Yeah, Justice League I'm pretty looking forward to, because I think that's Williamson, and then it's got a Justice League Dark backup with Ramby. So
Yeah.
Sure.
That's probably safe.
Green Lantern has a guy and Jessica Cruz backup.
That's true. That's true.
This is the one he's the guy who's going to be writing the Green Lantern book.
Jeffrey Thorne.
And he's the guy who publicly hates Hal Jordan on Twitter.
Oh, that's pretty funny. The tasking of Sector 123 is one of the stories in that. Is that a typo? I could have sworn it was actually the taking of Sector 123 when we first saw that title.
That's probably what it is.
Oh, Matt, you mic. It just went. You're the 11th hour. Matt's mic's going again. Yeah. So... okay, just for funds, right? I want everyone to... So, Matt, if you were to pick one out of those 7, right?
Yep.
Which one do you think is going to be the Flash next week where we all hate it? Right? And we're going to... I think we're all reading all 7 of these, right? I don't think any of us are like, oh, there's none of these... There's one of these that we don't really want to read. But if you were just to guess and say there's one that's going to disappoint all of us...
I maybe, because going into it really, really heavy... Maybe Teen Titans, just because we have a lot of, we all like those characters a lot, and I'm seeing who's doing it. Yeah. Yeah,
and Teen Titans, hasn't had the best track record since we started this podcast, so that's not a bad idea. Cara, which one do you think is going to disappoint all of us?
When you say disappoint, do you mean just lower than expectations, or that we'll actually think is not very good?
No, we'll all think is shit, and we'll definitely not read the next one.
Robin Eternal.
Yeah, that was a strong one too, just because it's Tim and Steph, and that's on a very uneven footing. So
that's already where I'm like, do I even want to read that? Looking at it,
no, I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm definitely reading that.
There's not one on here where I'm like, I'm getting bad vibes from, which might be a problem.
I think Superman, Wonder Woman will be the surprise hit of the week.
I'm hoping. I just want more.
Are you just saying that because Yara's in it? Is that the only reason why you're saying that?
No, I'm saying that because it's Dan Watters, who I actually tend to think is a very underrated writer.
What else has he done?
He did the Lucifer stuff in the Dreaming World stuff.
Okay.
Cool.
I have no pre-opinion of Mr. Wars.
He's part of the White Noise group that came out of the UK. That it's the same group that Ram V came from.
Okay.
So maybe don't put your expectations.
Maybe the Kara book, just because it seems so disconnected from.
I really want to like it just because I want a good Supergirl book, but
that's
we'll
both the Margarets. So
yeah, right. But I'm just taking things. I think the other ones. I think Dark Detective. I think even Green Lantern, and I think Justice League are all pretty safe.
I think
at this point
there's potential for these all to be good. It's just a case of I doubt all 7 are actually going to be good though.
No, because I remember reading the solicits for that Flash one and being like, nope, don't like that. And
that was always from the start. We knew.
Yeah.
That didn't sound great.
I'll be happy if I'm enthusiastic about 4 out of 7. I'll be happy next week.
Yeah.
If it's 3 or less, I'll be miffed.
Depends how much I like the 3.
I suppose, yes. That's true. It depends. Like if the other ones are disappointing, they're just all right, or like, oh no, this was Flash Future State bad.
Yeah, there's a difference, isn't there?
Because there is a difference, yeah. All right, so that's what's coming next week. I'll take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Bordenau, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are $20 or more on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV at the time of recording. And you can, of course, support us for as little as $1 per month over at Patreon and help keep all the content coming. At the $5 tier, you get early access to the podcast by a day. And for the record, previously in the Multiverse is returning in the near future. Obviously, there was a lot of delays to it, and Connor obviously not been able to record for a month, just delayed it further. But it is coming back. Is becoming a priority. And particularly that I have new glasses coming next week. Because I'll be honest, a big reason why I've not been reading a lot of comic books outside of the ones we do for the show is because physically reading recently has not been that pleasant for me. So new glasses coming. For the record, though, my eyes are actually completely healthy otherwise than needing new glasses, so there's no bad news. It's just it took a long time to get an appointment because pandemic and whatnot.
Right. God damn it! I did not realize my dog's in here because she's so quiet until she hears a sound.
Until she strikes.
Hey! Ninja dog.
Dog strikes. All right. So previously's coming back. You can get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. Go do that for updates and shenanigans. Otherwise, check out other content. You know, me, Matt, and Tim reviewed Wonder Woman. If you like that, we do have other movie shows on MailFuzz TV. You can go check out on the MailFuzz TV YouTube channel, which is at the time of recording like 5 subscribers away from 10,000. So go check out that. Also worth mentioning the second YouTube channel, which is the Comics from the Multiverse YouTube channel, which is where all the reviews get cut up and go up as playlists, and you get the individual reviews for each of the show, for each issue of each comic. And one of our patrons, David, is actually cutting up the old episodes of Comics from the Multiverse and putting them up all the way back from the start. So eventually there'll be like a full playlist of every issue of Batman from the start of Rebirth, where you can just listen or watch those reviews. So go over and have a look and subscribe if you're interested in getting those. Previously goes up there. That's where the video version of Previously will be going when it goes to go up. It'll be individually on that channel. So yeah. I think that's just about everything. So thank you very much for joining us for episode 235 of the show. Where the unholy trinity that is myself, Matt, and the most unholy of us all, Connor.
I will wear that with a badge of pride.
Is he the only one that went to a religious school too?
I did go to Catholic school.
Oh, that's pretty funny, actually. The irony of what I just said.
Yeah.
But yes, so yes, the trinity of the podcast is once again together. We'll be back next week. Look out for the annual episode sometime soon as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
We're back.